Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1261 of the War News Stream. Today, we've gotten some very big news that Russia has panicked today after a large Ukrainian drone attack on their territory. Also, Israel's preparing a Gaza ground invasion as we speak, and explosions are erupting across Iranian territory yet again, and nobody's really sure why. But it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world. As we have been able to hear, the Ukrainian armed forces over the past 6 hours have been able to conduct significant strikes with their drone forces onto Russian refineries within the Don region, striking and hitting several oil refineries around the area of the city of Krasnodar, within the Krasnodar Oblast. We have also been able to hear of significant developments inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, with large explosions being reported within the western outskirts of the capital city of Tehran, as well as explosions being reported within the central area of the city of Isfahan. We have also been able to hear at the exact same time that the United States of America, along with their allies inside of the Far East, are now conducting military exercises as a part of Operation Talisman Sabre 2025. This is one of the largest military operations that has been conducted as a preparatory war game for the defense of the Western sphere of influence within the area of East Asia, with around 48,000 service members from 19 different countries attending the military exercise. We have also been able to hear that the Marine Littoral Regiments, a brand new creation of the United States Marine Corps to be able to shift to Pacific war fighting, is also being exercised and tested as a doctrinal strategy in this war game as of today. We have also been able to hear in the meantime, major diplomatic developments are still continuing to coalesce between the Russian Federation and the United States of America at quite literally the 13th hour, as we are hearing that the Russian Federation is already starting to state that specific demands will have to be met for them to find a peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine. And according to statements from the Special Envoy of the United States, it appears that the demands that the Russians are making, even as America is trying to temper them down into something slightly reasonable, at least from what we would understand, they are still completely unacceptable. We have also been able to hear that the President of the United States of America may possibly be waffling on his position, and is also stating that he would like to meet with the President of the Russian Federation, although there has been a bit of confusion as to whether he would meet with Putin before Putin met with Zelensky, or whether he's going to meet with Putin before he meets with Zelensky, if he meets with Zelensky at all. We have also been able to hear that the Republic of India's major refinery companies have also once again halted imports of Russian petroleum over the past day once again, as it appears that there may be some growing confusion inside the Republic of India as to whether or not they will be following along or adhering to U.S. sanctions. We have also been able to hear inside the Middle East that the Israelis are finalizing at this very moment in time live their invasion plans for the Gaza Strip, and satellite and picture evidence is starting to show major buildups of Israeli armed forces along the area of the Gaza Strip borders as they are preparing for this final invasion. We have also been able to hear in the meantime that the Lebanese government has come to an agreement with the United States of America, most likely through the U.S. Ambassador Tom Barak, to be able to conduct an attempted armed dismantling of Hezbollah. We are already seeing that Hezbollah supporters and Hezbollah forces are beginning to rally in the streets of Beirut, possibly showing that this may become an incredibly bloody battle between the Lebanese government and Hezbollah, or the Lebanese government may back down and allow for Hezbollah to continue to persist inside the country. Nevertheless, we have had a major amount of news today, quite a significant amount once again, and it does appear that the state of Ukraine is continuing to slam the Russian Federation with significant attacks and bombardments. But before we move on into that news, I do also want to say that tonight, once again, we are largely waiting for that 13th hour sort of a statement. We'll be getting into that here in a little bit on the diplomatic level between the Russian Federation and the United States, because it does appear that the United States and the Russian Federation are trying to reassess their diplomatic positions at the moment to see whether they would like to press forward with both of their diehard positions that have been made here in the United States, that the war must end with a compromise, and for the Russian Federation, the war must end in an absolute unconditional Russian victory. It doesn't really appear that we are clear which side is going to be coming out on top, at least in the diplomatic dialogue, but one thing is for certain: the President of the United States has made a direct ultimatum that they can find a peace with Ukraine by the 8th of August, otherwise significant sanctions will be implemented. And from what we understand, those sanctions, if they are to be implemented, are only hours away, which will be altering the course of this war either for better or for worse, but completely changing the face and terrain of the conflict as far as the diplomatic stage is currently set so far. Moving on into our major news of the night, we have been able to hear inside the Krasnodar Oblast that Ukrainian armed forces were able to conduct significant attacks on two major Russian oil refineries just west of the city of Krasnodar. The city of Krasnodar actually lies within an area called the Don region, and it is not called that because Ramzan Kadyrov has a aptitude for saying Don in every single sentence that he says. It actually is called the Don region because these are the steps of the Don River, which flows directly through the city of Rostov-on-Don. You can actually see the Don River right here. This, for this reason, is quite a large, wide, and flat plain throughout the southern region of the Russian Federation, spanning all the way from Volgograd to the city of Rostov-on-Don and down to the foothills of the Caucasus Mountain regions, which create the border between the Republic of Georgia and that of the Russian Federation. This makes the Don region an incredibly important one for trade and economic importance, as well as strategic significance for the Russian Federation. Flat land makes logistical efforts far easier to carry through on, and for this reason, there are a large amount of Russian oil refineries that can be found within what can be described as the leg of the Russian Federation, or the Don region, as it generally is specifically called. The Ukrainian armed forces were apparently able to conduct drone attacks across the Sea of Azov overnight, flying their drones from their launch points somewhere within the Kryvyi Rih region, or the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, over the Sea of Azov into two specific refineries. One inside the southern end of Slavyansk-na-Kubani, seen about right here, this smaller refinery, and we also were able to hear that another refinery was also hit just outside of the city of Krasnodar, inside of a smaller town that is directly on the outskirts. These two refineries are somewhat significant, as Russian oil refineries are incredibly important to maintaining any kind of a usable fuel product product or source for the Russian civilian population, or largely the Russian industrial base, as well as the Russian military as well. Without an endless supply of usable fuels, either in forms of diesel, straight gasoline, or any other variants of usable fuel, the Russian Federation will start to face significant fuel shortages, which will either put undue stress onto the Russian armed forces or the Russian economy, or both simultaneously, if a rationing regimen is not put in place. We were able to see video and picture evidence from both cities confirming that there were fires at both refineries, and clearly showing us the Ukrainian attacks had been successful again at hitting these two medium-sized refineries within the region of the Russian Don.
Don, it looks like they're smoking on the town, Don.
That thing is roasting, Don. It is burning quite nicely, Don. From what we understand, we were not able to get a video, if I remember correctly, of a drone impact on this refinery, but it generally was understood to be a larger part of the Ukrainian drone attack that was occurring just hours ago, with another Ukrainian drone having been confirmed to hit a refinery far closer to the city of Krasnodar. We are classifying this as a successful Ukrainian drone impact. When you see the fire continuing to roast inside of the compound of the refinery, just off in the distance. But moving on from that clip and on into a couple of other ones, we have also been able to see another clip showing us the cooking of the Talisman refinery. Ahuyet, says the kid. And here comes the drone. Dead on the mark. Boy, buddy, that thing be cooking.
Massive hit right there, I'll tell you what. That is such a vibrant looking fire right there.
It's vibrant, like the future of the Russians. A vibrant fire of hell. But we also got one more clip, also showing us the Slavyansk-na-Kubani oil refinery campus, once again, toasting. Inhale that delicious, acrid black smoke. It's definitely good for your health. But nevertheless, it does confirm, at least at the moment, that the Slavyansk-na-Kubani oil refinery has taken a hit from Ukrainian drone forces. And once again, to remind you all, this is the specific refinery that we were speaking of right here. It is a somewhat medium-sized refinery. This isn't one of the largest ones that you would find inside the Russian Federation, or even inside of the Don region of the Russian Federation here in the south. But it is quite important for the Russian Federation's fuel supply abilities. We also were able to see that another refinery in a city just west of the major city of Krasnodar, which the oblast is named after, also was hit as well. And this brings us to the area of the Apfinsk refinery, if I remember its pronunciation correctly. But let me go here really quickly and show you all the Afipsky oil refinery, and let me see really quickly if I can find that one for all of y'all, because this one, hang on, hold up, folks. Here we are. There we are, the Afipsky oil refinery right here. You can actually see that this is a fairly large, sprawling complex for this refinery in particular. It seems to be incredibly spread out, and that also is leading us to believe that they have future expansionary plans, as usually this sort of large amount of ground in between the different complexes of the refinery shows that they're going to be expanding it at some later date, meaning that it may take up this entire area within the center of the three major facilities that have been built at this moment. We can also see noticeably here right outside of Afipskaya train station to the west, this large oil fueling station with a large amount of idle and waiting oil tank cars waiting to be loaded with the refined fuel products or with crude oil, either to keep the refinery running or to be able to take the usable fuel products to their gas stations or distribution facilities on the open market. This is something that makes this a high priority target, as a large amount of fuels directly waiting to be committed to the Russian supply chains to be able to keep fuel sources at a ready, available sort of a level for most of the Russian Federation are quite literally sitting in the wide open in a large grouping. And we can see in this video evidence right here, a Ukrainian drone impacting that specific facility and catching it alight, which we can see right here. There goes the Ukrainian drone, right over the horizon, right into the fuel storage tanks, which creates a significant explosion and a fireball, confirming the hit.
Meanwhile, the person is having a nice fine cup of tea while they're looking at those.
Man, they're sitting there literally like swishing around the spoon inside of the cup going, tisk tisk, how incredulous. But nevertheless, we also got another clip from the area of the Apfisk refinery, also showing us the fire burning in the distance from the town. Also, by the way, folks, from what we generally know, this was filmed on the northern side of Apfisk, somewhere around these higher-rise apartment buildings, right here or right here, because its line of sight appears to be looking out the window and then off into the west, but also slightly to the left as well of the camera. This is generally showing us that this video was filmed from one of these higher rises within the northern area of the city, and that is generally the field of view. But once again, geolocating and confirming the direction and location of the fire relative to the small town here of Upfitskaya, which the refinery is named after. But that appears to be roasting. That's the end of that clip, but moving on from that and on into our last clip from the Apfitsk oil refinery, we also were able to get this closer up view of the fire in this video. It's always interesting, the scale of these fires. When you listen to them, then they actually kind of sound like a rolling water nearly with the size of the fire and the sound of the burning.
This guy's already choking on the smoke, it sounds like. And also, you know, one thing you always notice with these Russians that stand around these fires, nobody's like urgently trying to call the fire department. If anybody ever notices that, like they're just standing around staring like, oh wow, look at that. It's like, well, who's calling the fire department? Like everybody's just standing around like they're not even really attached to the scene.
Man, dude, every single Russian, man, whenever a fire starts, they all just go, the claw, like those little aliens in Toy Story,
Yeah.
and they just stare at it. They don't do anything. It's like they're frozen by the fact there's a fire. No one calls the fire department. No one does anything. Like, if anything, man, like if there's a kid around, like especially one of their own kids, they'll go, look, boy, it's a fire. And then the kid will be like, wow, I feel drawn to it. It is the Russian spirit drawing you to look at this fire, blade. Shouldn't we call the fire department? No, let it burn. Like, let it burn. It's beautiful. But beyond that, it does appear that two significant oil refineries within the region were hit and have been knocked out of action as a result of these Ukrainian drone attacks over the course of the day. It does appear that the Ukrainian armed forces are largely starting to ramp up their oil refinery attack campaign, even in the midst of attempted diplomatic dialogue between the United States and the Russian Federation about a possible end to the Ukraine war, or generally the conflict at large. It doesn't really appear that there's going to be a lot made, at least in terms of progress in that regard. And let me bring y'all into the diplomatic situation at the moment to let y'all generally see that the Ukrainian strategy that's currently being implemented right now is still a longer-term strategy aiming at depriving Russia of vital fuel resources in the future, as it does appear that the diplomatic situation is once again untenable. We have been able to hear that Witkoff has apparently put out some proposals to the Russian Federation, and it's a little bit of an interesting one. Here are some of the major points of this very favorable deal that the United States has attempted to give to the Russians. According to the report from a Polish outlet who states that they have obtained details of the proposal presented by Witkoff, here is the proposal as it stood so far, or at least our general understanding of the one that exists. A ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, which will not serve as an effective peace treaty, so it will only be a ceasefire, meaning that the war could restart at any given moment, really just buying the Russian Federation time and not actually binding an actual legal end to the conflict. There will also be a de facto recognition of Russia's territorial seizure, with the issue postponed for 49 or even 99 years, which is generally stating that the Russian Federation, from what we would know based off of prior Russian demands, will get the entirety of the Kherson Oblast, including the area on the other side of the river, including the city of Kherson itself. They also will get the remainder of the Zaporizhia Oblast, including the city of Zaporizhia. They will maintain their entire holdings inside of the Luhansk Oblast, which they generally completely control already, and they'll also get the remainder of the Donetsk Oblast, including Pokrovsk, Konstantinivka, Dobropilya, Kramatorsk, and Slovyansk. Then, on top of that, there will be a lifting of pretty much all sanctions against the Russian Federation, a return to importing Russian gas and oil in the long term, generally a complete halt of sanctions, and the Europeans will pretty much go back to buying Russian oil and gas in full scale. There will, however, to finally get to the part that kind of benefits the West or Western interests, there won't be any guarantees on halting NATO expansion in the future, and there won't be a promise to stop military aid to Ukraine. But generally, it's almost conceding to the Russians, at least from what we're hearing right now, on just about every single topic except for future NATO expansion and military aid to Ukraine. So
Really, it's like, how does that benefit Ukraine at all? Because all it's doing is it's giving a ton of upside to Vladimir Putin and none to Zelensky whatsoever. Because it gives Russia a set period of time. Let's just say it's a 30-day ceasefire. That Russia can rebuild what they're missing. They can try to recruit more individuals into the Russian military, and they can try to give their economy a little bit of a break. So outside of helping Vladimir Putin, how's it helping Zelensky any? Because Zelensky's already getting the weapons he needs. They're holding their ground pretty well, and they're taking ground in certain areas of the front lines. So to me, it seems illogical. I'm not even sure why they'd even propose this.
yeah, it doesn't really seem all too illogical. And then also on top of that, just to add a little bit more to the diplomatic fires that have been going on today, Putin also stated, I won't be showing y'all the whole clip here because there's no transcript for it or translation. Putin stated that for a meeting to happen with the President of the United States, or anyone for that matter, certain conditions must be created. It's that old saying that pretty much means you have to give me everything I want before I even come to talk to anyone. We also were able to hear on top of that from the U.S. side a couple of other additional details today that have made things incredibly confusing. The White House is saying that Putin must meet with Zelensky before he can meet with the President of the United States. The President of the United States, on the other hand, is saying that he'll just meet with Putin directly and skip Zelensky. We also have been able to hear that it appears, at least from White House officials speaking to ABC, the Kremlin has not yet indicated any willingness to hold a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. So generally it appears that it's already hitting a decent roadblock as it is, and it also appears that the United States, or the office of the President of the United States, may just be considering going directly over Ukraine's head and pretty much negotiating a peace with the Russians without the Ukrainians present, possibly. So it does seem as though a lot of people are talking at the moment about that particular issue, as that seems to be jumping the gun a little bit. A lot of people believe, much like common sense would dictate, that the two warring parties and representatives of both actual warring parties should get together and speak on the situation before the third-party intermediary gets involved, which is the United States of America. Others are saying that it's not that big of a deal, and everyone always knows that you're supposed to just kind of sell out your allies without even letting them have a moment to speak on a situation that directly pertains to their country. But nevertheless, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking as well?
So it looks like about 46% of the audience said that's a very bad move and very illogical to basically not require Putin to meet with Zelensky first before meeting with the U.S. president, while 26% said that is a good move and let's see what happens, and 18% said I'm 50-50 on this question. And I would say personally, from a logical standpoint, it only makes sense that since Vladimir Putin is the one that's been negotiating in bad faith, he should do something as an olive branch, basically effort, I guess you could say, to show that he means business this time and he actually wants to negotiate. So the obvious way to do that is to meet with Zelensky first. That would be, in my opinion, groundbreaking if Putin would agree to meet with Zelensky, because those two hate each other, and that would be the most clear sign that they actually want to end the war. But Putin still doesn't want to meet with Zelensky. The U.S. president is not going to require him to do so, which would obviously be the first indicator of good faith on Putin's part. So to me, it seems very illogical. We're going to meet with Putin as the U.S. The U.S. president wants to meet Putin directly, and we're not even requiring him to talk to the guy that he's at war with. So it seems like a shaky foundation as it is. It seems kind of desperate. It seems like we should put preconditions on Putin before we simply start talking to him like he's some type of friend of the West, which he's clearly not. So I'm with the 48%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's a bad move and highly illogical at the moment, as it does appear that that would generally be pretty much selling out the Ukrainians at this point, because they wouldn't even really have a say in the peace talks that they're going to be directly involved in from the aftermath and the after effects of it. That's just what I would generally have to say. It doesn't make a great deal of sense. And I also saw some people stating, and maybe due to not really paying too much attention to the situation, what's going on inside of Ukraine, and also stating that my statements on what the terms were for the Russian Federation, according to the special envoy, at least from what we understand at the moment, is incorrect, and that it's stopping and freezing the front lines where they are instead of allowing the Russian Federation to gain more territory. And y'all call it be mistaken, because while that is saying that in words, we do know the context behind it. And the Russian Federation has made it incredibly clear because of their illegal referendums held inside the Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk oblasts that they recognize the entirety of the Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk oblasts by a 98% margin of success to be a part of the Russian Federation. That means that recognizing Russia's claimed current territorial gains includes the remainder of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk that they currently do not have under their possession or control. That is something that has to be a little bit clarified. De facto recognition of Russia's territorial seizures, according to a Russian perspective, which we largely will be working off of a Russian perspective, would include the remainder of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk that is not under their control. So that means that the Ukrainians, in large form, will have to give up territory that they have not physically lost in actual fighting at the moment. That is what the Russians have been insisting on through their 3 rounds of talks in Istanbul. That is what the Russians have insisted on to their talks directly to the United States in the past, that we've been privy to hear the information of from the Secretary of State. That is what the Russians have demanded in their entirety, which means that that statement there includes the remainder of the territory that the Russians do not directly control. That is the only logical assumption we could make, considering the context of prior Russian demands. And considering that that's pretty much meeting the Russians at the mark on every other topic, it would be incredibly on par to assume that that would include the remainder of the unoccupied territories inside of those oblasts. But still, I hope that addresses that clarification somewhat well, because that does appear to be the diplomatic footing that we're finding in the situation at the moment. So I will generally say to y'all, these talks are going to once again be a waste of time. If we are having to give that many concessions to the Russian Federation, we're not getting anywhere. And on top of that, another thing is that even with as weak-spined as this is, with all of these concessions being given to the Russians, these two at the end, no guarantees on halting NATO expansion and no promise of the halting of aid to Ukraine, are going to be deal breakers for the Russians. The Russians have made it clear through multiple talks that they will not be accepting anything that gives the West some type of amicable exit to the situation. They will only be accepting an absolute victory and an acceptance of all of their terms. Pretty much an unconditional surrender. That means that even with all of these absolutely insane concessions, in my opinion, that are being given to the Russians, this will still break the deal right here. And that will be something that generally will continue on the war. Because you have to remember that this war, at the crux of it, is the Russian Federation attempting to exert some sort of major regional influence by stopping the expansion of NATO and its alliance. They are trying to stop the joining of new members near critical areas of the Russian Federation's borders, including, let's say hypothetically Ukraine did join NATO. NATO armed forces would be within several hundred miles of Volgograd and completely severing Russia's major economic artery, the Volga River, and also would have a second attack corridor to Moscow, something that the Russian conventional ground forces would never be able to handle in the outbreak of an actual war. That is why this war generally did start, because Ukraine started their ascension process to NATO, and that's why the war kicked off in 2022. So the Russian Federation will consider this to be a deal breaker, because while they're getting concessions on the territorial side of things, we're not promising even in this attempt, or at least these sorts of proposals, to stop future NATO expansion, including bringing Ukraine into NATO. And we're also not promising to stop a military aid, meaning that we either will continue to arm the Ukrainians at our leisure, or the Ukrainians will actually have the option to be able to buy US and European military equipment, further modernizing their army and allowing it to westernize to be able to emphasize a superior firepower and precision strike doctrine instead of the one that Ukraine is still having to largely emphasize, which is a more Soviet-era superior firepower doctrine that doesn't rely on precision or a high level of training, but generally relies on a saturation of fire, sort of a principle. So it does appear that will be a deal breaker even still, with everything that's been laid out so far. But nevertheless, it does appear that we are going to have to be waiting to see what happens tomorrow. I would like to say that this is pretty much stopping where it is right now, but I also want to tell you all really quickly, for the analysis side of things, the President of the United States is wildly unpredictable. Usually there would be some sort of a predictable outcome to given inputs. Usually things are incredibly binary in the diplomatic field, but the President of the United States generally follows along with a non-binary decision-making process, meaning that this could end up being a complete 180 tomorrow. And while we would believe that everything right now is showing that secondary sanctions will be implemented and that there will be significant damage to the Russian economy because they have not reached a ceasefire by the 8th of August, which was the clear demand made by the president could just decide to completely forget that that ever even was a ultimatum and to just continue to press on with the 2 weeks, in 2 weeks we'll see, sort of a statement. I want to make that incredibly clear, not as a political statement, because I'm sure some people will take that as a political statement, but more so as a actual analytical statement. While I would say, and I still do say, that secondary sanctions will be implemented tomorrow, that is working off of a logical binary input framework. The Russians have not met our demands by this time frame, therefore this is the consequence. But still, at the same time, it's unclear whether that consequence will coalesce or not, to try and make that as clear as I possibly can. But moving on from that, and on out of the area, we have been able to hear that in the meantime, inside the Middle East, there have been some pretty decent developments, at least within the region, over the course of the day, including some significant explosions inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran's largest cities, the capital city of Tehran and the major city of Isfahan within the central area of the country. But before I get on into that news inside the Middle East and start talking about those major topics, we do have another question for all of y'all right now, and this is actually one that I need to cover before we even move on. Russia, according to what we know by official Russian government statements, has already exceeded their budget deficit in the middle part of this year. It has only been half of the year, and they've already ended up accumulating a budget deficit of 4.9 trillion rubles, which is 61 billion US dollars. This is 25% more than the Kremlin had planned for the entire calendar year. Since the beginning of the year, Russian budget revenues have grown by only 2.8%, while expenditures have increased by more than 20%. Revenues from oil and gas have suffered the most, already falling 27% in July. It does appear that even the Russian government is not able to escape the financial woes that a lot of the Russian major industrial concerns have already been suffering through the course of this year, including Rostelmash, Kamaz, and the largest cement manufacturer or cement producer inside the Russian Federation. Even the Russian Federation now is starting to run into budgetary concerns and issues, and are starting to run out of cash far faster than they ever anticipated, at a rate of 200% more than the Russians are anticipating, at least at this point. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this? What would happen inside the Russian Federation beyond this point, at least from what a lot of people would believe? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so now that we have heard that, like the enforcer said, Russia's budget deficit, the amount of money they're in debt, has already exceeded their limit only halfway through the year by 25% already, what happens now? They've got to do something, so what are they going to do? 38% said Russia will steal from the citizens and get money that way, while 31% said Russia will get external help, and 25% said Russia will probably collapse soon in their economy. Now, one thing we have learned over time is a lot of people said for a long time, including us at points, that Russia is on the verge of collapse. And technically, they are on the verge of collapse, but somehow they stay afloat. They cook the books, that's number one. And number two, they do get external help, in my personal opinion, from countries like China that decide to start purchasing their oil, and also India as well, that basically keeps the Russian economy afloat and prevents them from collapsing. So that's why you see the U.S. trying to attack those methods of oil sales between China and India, because they know if they can attack that and successfully defeat it, that's going to put the Russian economy truly on the back foot and really cause it to collapse. But right now, that's a pretty big, tall order that we really can't pull off. So I would say Russia is going to continue getting external help. They're going to get it mainly from China. And I still say that China will bankroll Russia to the large extent and will keep them from collapsing. And also, Russia has another problem. They simply can't print their way out of this problem. Like, for example, when the U.S. has an issue, we simply turn on the money printer that goes brr and print the money. That's how we stay afloat. And we're in some hefty debt in the United States, but it's not a problem because the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. The currency inside of Russia, the ruble, is ruble. It's not the world's reserve currency. So they have a bit of a different situation that they have to contend with. So I'm with the 31%. They will get external help because they can't stand on their own 2 feet. And also, keep this in mind as well. The numbers that we're getting right now, which shows that Russia's in really bad financial shape, that's the cooked book numbers, by the way. That's the numbers that the Russian propaganda institutes are putting out, and that's the numbers that the media is running with. So it's probably worse than we're even being told in the public. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would be with the 38%. I have a feeling that the Russian Federation is going to finally approve in the Duma the plan to start liquidating every civilian's or citizen's assets in the country equivalent to more than 15,000 rubles. That most likely is going to be happening here incredibly soon because the Russian Federation simply does not have the ability any longer to be able to raise enough money or finance to be able to continue on the war in Ukraine and all of their other normal government operations. It's becoming incredibly clear at this point that the Russian Federation's economic rope is starting to draw a little slim, and it also appears there isn't really a lot of countries out there that can save them. We do have to remember that right now they're going into this extreme budget deficit already in the midpoint of this year, with the Indians and the Chinese still buying Russian petroleum as much as they could, or as much as they would generally need to, which most of the time, even if the Russians are in a bad situation and the Chinese and the Indians would like to strategically support them, they can only buy so much until there's literally nowhere to store the oil or the petroleum that they're ordering. So for that reason, the Russian Federation is in an incredibly bad disaster, a terrible financial disaster to say it at the least. And this most likely will start to lead to the Russian Federation's economy or government collapsing because of a lack of funds. We're already seeing that those sorts of things are popping up quite clearly already. But it's going to start happening here incredibly soon. No longer will the Russian vlogger be walking around in Moscow going, "Look, the crooked West said that all of their stores left, but look, we have shitty McDonald's. We call it tasty period. And that's because you will certainly be having to go to the doctor period after you eat this shit." Or something along those lines. There won't even be that anymore. The Russians won't even be able to try and keep up a semblance of normalcy even in the capital city after this sort of a financial crisis fully comes to a head, which is starting to get closer to that by each passing month. But with that in mind, I hope that does address that well. And it is time for us to move on down into the Middle East, because we have been able to hear that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been having some issues today. Little ones, but, you know, they're still issues. And I'm downplaying it. They're actually somewhat big. Inside of Tehran, near to this little lake, let me show you this little lake right here. It's this little lake right here. They call it the Golistan Lake. And it's actually a little bit interesting because they have these pads and all that sort of stuff. And, I mean, look at this. This is what the lake kind of looks like. This camera apparently was bought in the early 2000s. You can also see another view of it from about right here. Take a look at this. Wow, it's a lake. Isn't that crazy? It's like an actual lake with water in it. And this guy's on a boat, a motorboat. That's crazy. But beyond that, near to Chitgar Lake, there was a major explosion that happened today with smoke rising soon after, which we can see right here from this train.
That looks pretty abnormal right there. Looks like not just your average like apartment fire or something.
Man, that thing's smoking kind of profusely, really. But beyond that, moving on from that clip and on into our next one, further on down in Isfahan, we also got to see some sort of an explosion with smoke rising in Isfahan as well today. And it does appear quite interesting. These are two of the largest cities inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and both of them have suffered significant explosions and fires over the course of the day. Now, there's something suspicious going on here, folks. The Iranian government has said from time to time that there might be something a little bit odd going on, but this has now continued weeks of random explosions happening at critical areas or on the residences of important people inside of Iran, and this is starting to lead a lot of people to believe that there might be a little something extra going on inside the Islamic Republic of Iran. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this? Because a lot of people are noticing that the Iranian government really isn't reacting in any public form to any of this, and a lot of people are starting to say that there might be a clear reason as to why. But what are they thinking about it, Matthew, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so we did see the massive explosion there in Chitgar, near Chitgar Lake, and we also saw a massive explosion near Isfahan, which of course is the home to one of their nuclear sites inside of Iran. So it's happening near these sensitive sites, and why do you think Iran is not reacting? So 64% said that the Iranians do not want to admit failure, that they're not able to secure their own borders, and 14% said they are quietly scheming and using the time to prepare for a new attack, and 12% said that because the Iranians are probably the ones causing it. And I really personally doubt the Iranians are causing this personally. It's probably not accidents because these are happening way too frequently for it to be accidents. And also, we had heard before from one of the Iranian officials that they knew Mossad was operating inside their territory and they didn't really know how to stop it. So I think the main reason why you're not seeing any of the top leadership in Iran really admit to this problem, at least in I guess, a unified sense, is because they really don't want to admit failure because they know they don't have their country under control and they know that Israeli agents are literally festering everywhere and they don't even know where they're at. So they would rather ignore it basically than actually admit that this is a real issue. But the thing is, though, they can't ignore it for too long because what Israel's probably doing here is they're softening up the Iranian defenses and also these sensitive Iranian sites for probably a new attack that's coming in the future. So they can't ignore it forever, but at least publicly they can try to tamp it down by not acknowledging it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to say that I would be with 65% as well. I believe that they don't want to admit failure. The Islamic Republic of Iran has to keep up an image that they're strong and powerful and mighty, and a whole bunch of Mossad agents just running around the country blowing stuff up really doesn't do a lot to help out that image. So for that reason, that's generally why we're seeing that the Islamic Republic of Iran is brushing a lot of these under the rug and not really even talking about them, or at least publicly investigating them to a great deal, and are treating them as some sort of a random occurrence that's just happening randomly every day at randomly some very important locations and spots around the country. So, a little bit random and a little bit odd, but, nothing out of the ordinary, folks. Why are y'all asking about it? Geez, y'all are bringing up this stuff again? Like, it's been like years, right? Like, it's been years since that whole thing was an issue. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on out of the Islamic Republic of Iran and on out of the Middle East for a brief moment, because I actually wanted to bring y'all down to a large part of our viewership in Australia, because there actually was something quite interesting that happened here today inside of East Asia, or kind of in Southeast Asia, or the southeast region of the eastern part of Asia, to make it as specific as we can. But moving on down into this area, near to the Timor Sea, we were able to hear that Operation Talisman Sabre 2025 is now underway. And this is actually an incredibly interesting sort of a war game here that's going on. To summarize what this war game is and what it's trying to plan out, it's trying to plan out a hypothetical war, and here in the West, we like to make it a lot less on the nose. So generally we say that it's to prepare for eventual exigent circumstances within the region. And to cut through the political talk there, that means a war with the Chinese. And we're trying to figure out what that will look like. And for the large part, we know that because the Pacific, or at least the Southern Pacific, to show you all this area on the satellite picture, is made up of quite a large amount of smaller islands, or even the nations themselves within this area are generally constituted of hundreds if not thousands of smaller islands, that most of the war in the Pacific will be fought by island hopping operations, much like they were fought in World War II, or any other war beyond that point that's happened inside the Pacific. For that reason, 19 different countries have come together to conduct Operation Talisman Sabre, and this year's Operation Talisman Sabre was one of the largest. It included 48,000 service members from 19 different countries around the world. It's actually quite a significant force. It actually is as large as we are projecting the Sapad 2025 military exercise to be. So in terms of raw manpower, this is quite significant. A decent amount of the Australian armed forces are involved, along with the United States, along with the British Army, which is involving some limited units, mostly of the SOF variety, or Special Operations Forces, New Zealand, Singapore, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the Indonesians, the Germans, Fiji, the French, the Canadians, the Australians as a whole, as well as Tongan land forces are also involved. So quite a significant grouping of forces. And we were able to get a little bit of video and picture evidence today from the military exercise that was being conducted. It was a little short, but it was still interesting nonetheless. Here's the clip.
Man, I love those hovercraft things that the Marines use right there. Those are so cool, but I've heard that they're a nightmare to maintain them properly.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things that they're not really the greatest, but as far as getting stuff on shore fast, they do an amazing job at that. But everything else is an absolute pain from what I've been able to hear. Nevertheless, though, it does appear that this military exercise is trying out some incredibly interesting stuff. Just to list off some of the forces that are involved, or at least the statements that were made today by USNI, the U.S. teamed with Australia, South Korea, and Japan, along with multiple other countries, to conduct a major amphibious assault and amphibious raid, surface warfare combat operations, and strike warfare on training areas across coastal Australia, particularly around the area of the city of Darwin, or within the West Darwin regions. Beyond that, they also stated that the Pinnacle exercise saw Amphibious Task Group 1 land at a freshwater beach in Shoalwater Bay training area in central Queensland, while Amphibious Task Group 2 came ashore at Snanach Bay farther north. U.S. Marine Corps 3rd Assault Amphibious Battalion employed amphibious combat vehicles for the major amphibious assault. We also were able to hear that in what was a massive show of force, these amphibious lodgements put forces ashore to act as pincers of a blocking force, while a separate motorized force moved in to defeat the quote-unquote Red Force from the fictitious People's Republic of Ovana. That's a little bit close to being quite direct with who that would be. What country has the People's Republic in their name inside of East Asia?
I think to China.
Yeah, that's all interesting. The U.S. Navy participants involved in the exercise include Expeditionary Strike Group 7, Amphibious Squadron 11, the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, and MEU, the American Amphibious Ready Group, including the USS America, the USS Rushmore, and the USS San Diego, all generally amphibious support ships, the USS Higgins, which was a destroyer from Desron 15, and Expeditionary Sea Base USS John L. Canley, ESB-6. This was a fairly large naval exercise and amphibious landing exercise, all things considered, and it's an incredibly important one. Most of the forces that were involved in this operation were generally those that were comprised of either the Marines, of the United States Marines, some elements of the Australian Armed Forces, which also could generally be described as normal ground forces, or also additionally for their landing forces, amphibious forces as well. And generally everything else was of an SOF variety. We have been able to hear, interestingly enough, although not a lot of coverage has been given on these units, that the 21st Marine Infantry Regiment of France was present at this exercise, along with, crazily enough, the 26th Regiment of Fallschirmjägers from Germany. These are an airborne air assault unit from the Federal Republic of Germany. We also were able to hear present as well in the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Forces was the 2nd Artillery Brigade, using primarily the Type 12 surface-to-ship missile battery. We also were able to hear that in the Republic of Korea's armed forces, some K1A2 MBTs and K9 artillery pieces were present. And interestingly enough, this one has gotten nearly no press. The Royal Gurkhas and the 42nd Commando of the Royal Marines were also present as a part of the British contingent in this military exercise that was conducted. These are all incredibly interesting, and it is showing us that a lot of this amphibious exercise, at least over this year, as Operation Talisman Sabre is conducted every 2 years on an odd year. The last one was conducted in 2023. This is the most recent one that's been conducted as of late, are starting to shift heavily into trying to understand what the Pacific War will look like when it breaks out with the Chinese. And considering that a lot of it revolves around island hopping, it isn't really a quantity sort of an operation. It is more so of a quality-based operation, especially on amphibious landing forces. Most islands in the Pacific, especially the smaller ones that you would find in places like the Paracel and Spratly Islands, are literally sandbars nearly. Let me actually go show y'all some of the islands in the Spratlys. Actually, that's not even an island, that's a shoal. This is one of the islands that would be involved. It's an incredibly small area. It is quite literally a boxing ring in terms of military, in terms of actual tactical size. There isn't even enough room to really land a force without it being under direct fire immediately. This means that if you ever engage a ground force on one of these islands, which you will have to physically retake it, it is going to involve the cream of the crop. There is no room to be able to group up, to be able to try and use superior numbers to outmaneuver. There's no room for that on most of these islands. So you have to literally fling in your best troops right on top of them and wipe them out as quickly as possible. It would be brutal fighting on these smaller islands. And it always has been. In World War II, the fighting was extremely brutal on any island that was ever fought over. So for that reason, that's why you're seeing that a lot of SOF units are involved in this, like the 42nd Commandos and the Royal Gurkhas, because they have to be the best. There isn't enough room for superior numbers. They just have to be able to outfight the enemy, pretty much in a one-to-one sort of a scenario. Also, on top of that, we have been able to hear that apparently somewhere out there, it hasn't been officially stated, but some articles have alluded to it, that a Marine Littoral Regiment may have been involved in this military exercise inside of Operation Talisman Sabre, which is an incredibly interesting thing. The 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment is a brand new kind of a doctrinal emphasis being created by the United States Marine Corps with a direct focus on island fighting campaigns within the Indo-Pacific theater, or at least within Indo-PACOM's area of responsibility. This unit has existed generally since 1942 to the present day when it was stood up in its modern form, but recently, in just after 2023 and the conclusion of Operation Talisman Sabre in that war game, this unit was reorganized into a Marine Littoral Regiment. This is something that is incredibly new because the United States Marine Corps has usually been built around the MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit. The Marine Littoral Regiment is entirely built around boat-based operations and has a very lean and self-sufficient sort of a structure that would be able to help itself be able to take an island and try and hold it for as long as possible, even if it was cut off from support from the United States Navy. This unit consists of 3 battalions and 2 support companies. One is the HQ section, which technically isn't really a company. The other one is the communications company. The other 3 battalions that actually make up the main force of the 3rd Marine Littoral Combat Regiment, or LCR, is an infantry battalion, an anti-air battalion, and an anti-ship battalion. Well, actually, a logistics battalion. The anti-air battalion also kind of serves in a sense as an anti-ship battalion, but I'll try and explain that a little bit better, at least from what we know on how it would operate. Generally, this is not supposed to be an SOF-based unit. This is made up of regular forces of the United States Marines, but by the use of a large amount of boats supported by some sort of an LHD group or some sort of a amphibious strike group, like the USS America, that is currently inside of Operation Talisman Sabre, this unit would be able to operate with boats to rapidly attack an island, supporting the infantry battalion that makes up this LRG. Or littoral, wait, hang on, let me think. Littoral combat, so LCR, sorry, correction there, would be able to support this LCR. Once the infantry come on land and start to clear out a small area, they would then offload the logistical support battalion and also the anti-air battalion. The anti-air battalion, from what we know, has anti-air and anti-ship elements built into it, meaning that once they land on an island, even if the Navy was pushed back from the island for a little bit, this battalion, well, generally this littoral combat group, would actually be able to support itself and defend itself from enemy cruise missile attacks by their navies, and also from airstrikes or attempted air attacks as well. That is an incredibly important thing, because it ensures that the fight would be relegated to the ground forces of the Marine battalion on the island, as well as the enemy forces that would be present on that island as well. Generally meaning that this is a self-sustaining unit, and pretty much a combined arms force as far as the Marines are concerned that is tailored to island fighting. This is an incredibly new sort of a doctrine that's being rolled forward by the Marines, and it's been in an experimental form really ever since 2023, with the only active littoral combat regiment being based out of Hawaii, and that would be the 3rd Marines, which you can see their emblem on screen for. Hopefully we will be able to see that this works incredibly well. We've actually been hearing, at least in the background, that the Marines are actually starting to emphasize the idea that the Marine Littoral Regiment is the fighting force of the future, and it actually will end up replacing at least pretty much every single MEU that exists right now, or every single MEU will become a littoral regiment in the future. So an incredibly interesting sort of a thing. And we will be waiting to see whether that would be effective or not. But they may be testing that out in this operation. It's just that it's been a little bit ambiguous. And I want to make that a little bit clear as far as why it's ambiguous one more time. Some articles are referencing the use of a littoral regiment like that in this exercise, but there doesn't appear to be any official public claim by any of the armed forces involved of this littoral regiment being used. And as far as it being seen in military exercises, it's been incredibly rare. In late 2023, it was present in a military exercise in the Philippines, but since then, a lot of its publicized military exercises have been kept under wraps for the large part of it's been involved in any. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least at the moment. But it also does appear that this is coming in line with something that the People's Republic of China has largely been admitted to say today, according to some reports from some news outlets, as analysts have stated that China wants to prolong the Ukraine war until the Taiwan invasion in 2027. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts over that as to whether they believe that's accurate or not. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So while we're still in that region of the world, that is the question right now, because analysts are now saying that apparently China is going to prolong the Ukraine war, or at least try to help Russia prolong the war. So that way they can use that as a smokescreen to also perform the Taiwan invasion in 2027. And what are your thoughts? 72% said it sounds likely true and accurate, while 11% said it sounds untrue, they don't buy it, and 10% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And to me, I would say I personally take issue with the timeline there. I think China might invade Taiwan before 2027. I think that's pushing it off a little bit too far, in my opinion. So I believe China will prolong the Ukraine war the best way they can, because of course that does wear down the West, because we're having to support Ukraine to fight against Russia. So naturally that would suit China's interest. But I think they might try to invade Taiwan before that. That's just my hunch. Of course, we can't crystal ball exactly when it's going to happen. But to say it's going to happen for a certainty in 2027, I think that might be too far off. At least in my personal estimates. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, at least in my opinion, it sounds like it could be accurate, at least with the timetable of China wanting to conduct an invasion of Taiwan in 2027. But the idea of the Russians easily surviving into 2027 is highly dubious at this point. Economically, I don't really think the Russians can survive into 2027 and continue the war through 2027. It's most likely going to be completely falling apart by then, if they're even able to make it to 2027. But as far as China wanting to conduct a ground invasion of Taiwan in that year, that's highly likely. We still know that the Chinese are working on building up their navy to support an amphibious landing in Taiwan, and for that reason, that's still pushing them back towards 2027. So I would generally say that if China had the best kind of outcome, or a best world scenario, that would be the one that they're looking for. But in a real life scenario, this war is going to be over well before we will ever see the invasion of Taiwan, in my opinion. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from what I would know right now. And it is quite an interesting thing, that I will say. But beyond that, it is time for us to move on into some more of the news that's been coming out from around the world. And also, I see some people talking about the fighting inside of the Pacific, what it would generally look like. And one thing that I do have to say here really quickly that is incredibly interesting is that this actually is an infographic that was made by someone about how a Marine Littoral Regiment exists. This is a part of Force Design 2030. To quickly explain that, I forgot to mention that. The Marines are trying to change everything about the Marines by 2030. Which is a little bit behind the times, because now we're hearing that the Chinese might try and invade Taiwan by 2027, meaning that a war might actually start to happen well before Force Design 2030 can go into effect. But from what we know, at least for the larger part, it does seem as though, at least at the point, that they are still working towards this the best they can, and it's an incredibly interesting kind of a force structure. It's one that's incredibly interesting. I actually know someone who is in a Marine Littoral Regiment, and they described a little bit of what it's like to be involved in one, and it is an incredibly interesting sort of a thing. It pretty much is what you would imagine the naval landings at Iwo Jima or Peleliu to look like in the Second World War, but in a modernized form. So incredibly interesting sort of a of thing. And if y'all want, and if y'all know a great deal about NATO force unit structures and such things, you can take a look at this infographic right here and get a pretty good understanding of how this unit is actually organized and how it will most likely operate in combat. But moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into the rest of our news for the night, which includes a great deal of additional news from the Middle East, the Ukraine war itself, and on top of that, a little bit of additional news out of Kamchatka. But before we get into all of that, I want to make sure that we get a couple of questions from the chat. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first super chats of the night. Our first one goes to Marion Deemert, a longtime channel legend, by the way, who throws in a $30 donation tonight. And thank you very much, Marion, for that support once again. And we do sincerely appreciate that. And Marion said, F this war, it must end.
And I'd agree, but still, it has to end in a way that the West ends out coming on top and the Ukrainians do as well. And the Russians are more than willing to keep the war going to ensure that that will not happen, at least from what I can see at the moment. But I would certainly like to see it end, but not in a way that would end up being terrible for Ukraine or terrible for the Western world at large. But a huge thanks to you so much once again, Marion Deemert. You've been an old guard and channel legend here on the channel for many years, and I thank you for being here tonight and enjoying the channel and supporting it to help us to keep this thing running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again, and also, I'm hearing that there's lag. I can't really see that on my end. It appears that things are actually running somewhat normally over here, and so with that, we are on to the next one. But a big thanks to you so much once again.
Yes, indeed. And our second support here goes to T50's Nikai Louder, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, by the way, for that support. I think it might be your first ever support on the channel, and we sincerely do appreciate that as well. They said thank you and hello, LSA and Duck Poodler.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and a big hello on the behalf of T50 to the LSA. A huge hello on his behalf, and a huge thanks to you for the support, and of course, saying long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And also, I've got to say that Putin isn't really a big person that I'm a fan of. You know, not really a person I'm a fan of at all. As a matter of fact, you know, the guy's a little shisty, you know, like a little shifty, honestly. But beyond that, I do thank you massively for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the night.
And this one goes to another channel legend. This time it is Old Warrior, who throws in a 20. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, as well, for that $20 support. He said, I'm busy eating hot pulled pork. And take one from the chat. And also, Old Warrior, do you mean like hot as in like it's like warm or something? Or you mean like hot as in is like spicy pulled pork? I've never had spicy. That sounds pretty good, though, if that is. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, spicy pulled pork would be great. I've never had a spicy pulled pork. Every time anyone makes pulled pork, it's just pulled pork, you know, no spice really added. But pulled pork is good in its own right. But I do have to say, a huge thanks to you for the support. And Old Warrior, and I wish I could have some pulled pork right now, but we had some delicious tacos earlier today. They were bussin' for real. And so I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to get one from the live chat in your honor, Old Warriors. So Matthew, what do we got from the live chat?
All right, so the one from the live chat is going to go to Chargy, who said, what do you think of the idea that Russia will have to trade land and or resource rights for financial support of their economy, specifically from China?
I would have to say that I don't believe that the Russian Federation is ever going to be giving up any of their land, and I don't really think that anyone would want to take responsibility of their land. The Russian Federation is mired with issues and extreme corruption from west to east, and the People's Republic of China would not want to have to enter that kind of a situation and start to deal with it. It also has the chance of spreading through the People's Republic of China as a result, and that would take a lot of administrative attention, focus, and diligence that the People's Republic of China most likely does not have to be able to try and fix that issue. So I would generally say that they're not going to be trading any of their land. As far as resources, they'll definitely trade that. But in terms of actual land, they'll most likely never trade the land. There's also a lot of strategic value for the Russians that comes from their land, and while they can never fully realize it, they'll want to keep it for that reason. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Shargy. Great question, by the way. And of course, I thank you so much once again, Old Warrior, for sponsoring a live chat question and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so with that, it's time for us to move on into the rest of the news. And we have still A lot of it to go tonight. Moving us on up into a little bit of a halftime segment piece of news, we were still able to see volcanic eruptions happening in the Kamchatka Peninsula. Take a look at this high-definition footage. Man.
That looks terrible right there. It's kind of like a little bit foreboding looking right there. Honestly, where's that lava going though? Like, where's that flowing down to?
I don't even know, honestly. But it's flowing on down to the lands below, I'd assume. But we can also see here more footage and videos of the volcanoes and their eruptions. Pretty crazy stuff, honestly.
Very crazy. Contributing to the beautiful, wonderful air quality inside of Russia.
And we already know that that's top-notch. Here's also
Orcs
another...
love to breathe ash every single day.
Man, they freaking love my pollution. Like, man, I freaking love it. We can also see another picture here, and we can also see another picture here as well, showing volcanic activity around the area. But moving on from that, and out of the Kamchatka Peninsula, it's now time for us to make our way back towards the Middle East and Ukraine. Moving us on into India really briefly, we were able to hear that there is a temporary hold on oil imports again from Russia in India, as Indian state-owned refineries have again temporarily suspended purchases of oil from Russia after the president signed an executive order imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods for energy cooperation with the Russians. So it does appear that once again the Indians are slightly waffling, but I have a feeling they'll once again rededicate to getting Russian oil here in the future. They made it fairly clear from their foreign ministry statement they're not going to be straying away from that path at all. And Modi also made a statement today, once again clarifying that they're not going to be straying away from Russian oil imports. Moving us on back into the Middle East, we were able to hear that a Turkish convoy of diplomats, of Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, was spotted in Damascus today. Take a look. Oh, there he goes. Oh, look at that. The Turks are in full force here.
And what are they doing here? Like, why are they even here?
They're apparently here to speak to Al-Jalani.
Interesting.
Why they're wanting to talk to him, I don't know. That hasn't been made public yet. But it does appear that the foreign minister, Hakan Fidan, is present inside of Damascus. If only the Turks could be that present on issues that actually pertain to the greater Western world, which they are a part of, that would be great. But apparently they can't be, and, you know, Turkey does Turkey things. We all know that. There's no... I think that maybe one of the most famous sayings that's been made in foreign policy on this channel is that Turkey does Turkey things, and they make absolutely no sense. So, moving on from that, and out of the Syrian-Turkish news, it's time for us to move on into Lebanon, because it does appear that Lebanon, but the lights aren't on inside of Lebanon, because it does appear that the Lebanese have made an agreement with the United States to disarm Hezbollah. Wow. That's crazy. The Lebanese government announced it has approved a U.S.-backed plan to disarm all non-state entities in Lebanese territory, including Hezbollah. Wow, that's crazy. In the meantime, chaos is starting to evolve inside of Beirut, because we're now seeing that the Lebanese army is having to be deployed into the streets to deal with the pro-Hezbollah supporters and Hezbollah itself, which we can see right here.
How come they haven't done this before? I thought before they were acting like they couldn't do anything about Hezbollah, but now all of a sudden they can deploy the army to deal with it?
Oh, Matthew, you're asking too many questions here. It all makes sense. It all made absolute sense back in the day.
I thought Lebanon was anti-Hezbollah. You know, that's the story that people were telling me the whole time.
You know, I thought they were anti-Hezbollah too. Let's go look at the Lebanese government, and let's take a look at what seats in the government are controlled by who. Oh, let's see here. What's the organization of their current legislative structure? Oh, yeah. So it appears that, let's see. We have the Free Patriotic Movement, the Amal Movement, the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party. Wow, that's crazy. They have one seat. Oh, look, Hezbollah. Wow, with 13 seats in the current parliament. Wow, that's kind of crazy, right? Look at that. All 13 of those seats in the Lebanese parliament run by terrorists from a terrorist organization. That's kind of a little wild, you know? It almost seems like the terrorists kind of run the government a little bit. But yeah, we wouldn't want to push it that far. I mean, you know, the Lebanese government has told us time and time again from the Lebanese... Let me go get him really quickly. I got to show you this. The Lebanese prime minister himself. Let me go find this really quickly. Well, we want to go get the president, actually. Sorry, everyone. Let me go get the president. The president of Lebanon. Oh, yes. Penguin. From the DC comic series. He stated time and time again that they just can't do anything about Hezbollah. I'm sure that he was telling the truth. I mean, look at this guy. It doesn't look like he's about to go and try and like hold Gotham hostage or something like that. He looks like a very trustworthy guy. But you know, he's been saying time and time again this just isn't possible. And weirdly enough, he's also been saying that Hezbollah is not representative of the Lebanese government, although they have 13 seats in the Lebanese parliament. It's all kind of like it's coming together. And I will be honest with y'all, I don't think this is going to be going anywhere, because we also have been able to see that the Hezbollah supporters have been out in mass. And when I mean in mass, I mean a lot of them. Take a look at this. They're riding around on mopeds like this is Italy or something like that. Look at this.
Oh, wow. They're letting them ride. Someone got a message, too. Man, that's crazy. They're buzzing through the streets like a bunch of wasps.
Yeah, honestly, man, it's kind of like Abu Hassan and his 40 thieves. But we also got to see this clip right here, which didn't load earlier. It's still not loading. So I'll go get you all another one here as well, which is, once again, showing us the little moped rage that's going on in the city.
Those are some awfully powerful sounding mopeds right there. They sound like Harleys, but they're mopeds.
You know, man, they got some real hardcore bikers in Lebanon, man. They're real hardcore. They pimp out mopeds. Nobody gets more hardcore than that, man. Not even Harley riders are that, masculine.
They're not that hard.
They're not that hard. You've got to be real hard to ride around on a moped, Nats, like you're a force to be reckoned with. That honestly takes insanity, honestly. Because if I ever saw anyone come up to me and threaten me on a Vespa, I would get a good kick out of it. But apparently this is a Hezbollah supporting base, is a group of Vespa riders riding around the city and raising hell in their own way. I would bet you, with them riding Vespas, the way that they raise hell is going to a Starbucks and asking for oat milk in their coffee. Oat milk, not oat milk. I think that's how they raise hell or something like that, because never heard of moped gangs really causing a lot of hell. Now, if these start to pop up in America, if I start to hear about moped gangs terrorizing neighborhoods, I'm going to be absolutely shocked. Because this is one of the least intimidating things that you could imagine, is a moped riding group of terrorist supporters. It honestly makes Hezbollah seem like a joke, doesn't it?
It kind of does, but like in populated UK cities, like the criminals usually go around on Vespas too. That's like I guess you said the mode of transportation they like to take the most. The criminals, they like to get on those Vespas and like hijack people on the streets.
Yeah, but those are like petty thieves, you know, and just, you know, crazy one-off people. You don't have like an army of people going, we're going to overthrow the Western world, inshallah, riding around on mopeds. That doesn't really happen often, and it happens here. And it's like, this just seems wild. Let me turn off the audio. This just seems wildly unintimidating.
Honestly, I'm surprised they go that fast, really. And also, I got to admit, like, it's kind of surprising they can actually drive these things out, like wiping each other out. Because these are a lot of guys, like, really close to one another like that.
Yeah, honestly, man, it's crazy. Man, they're going to be overthrowing the Western world one 50cc motor at a time. But we moving on outside of that and outside of Lebanon, it's time for us to now move on down into the Gaza Strip, as we were able to hear that the invasion is apparently moving ahead. We were able to hear that the cabinet apparently decided in favor of occupying the Gaza Strip, despite the Israeli chief of staff's warnings that is pretty much unfeasible and will not succeed in the long run. We were able to hear, however, the military is, of course, having to follow through the orders, and there are now military buildups being seen by satellite along the length of the Gaza Strip's border as they are preparing for an invasion inside the area. It's quite clear at this point that things are starting to kick off in this region, and a lot of people are talking about it right now. And Samantha, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this is the most surefire confirmation we've gotten so far that Israel is going to almost certainly go in and invade Gaza and occupy it, which is obviously very controversial to a lot of people. But what are your thoughts about this? And it looks like 85% said Israel will 100% invade Gaza fully, while 4% said Israel will back off their plan, and 7% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And it sounds like they've got a full-fledged plan that's approved now by the Israeli legislation. So it sounds like it's a 100% go. I'm with 85%. And it sounds like their plans are this. They've adopted 5 principles to end the war. First, disarm Hamas. 2, return the hostages, both the living and the fallen. Also, 3, demilitarize the Gaza Strip. And 4, the Israeli security control will be over the Gaza Strip. And also, number 5, they said the existence of an alternative civilian government that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority will be established. So essentially, Israel is going in full-fledged. They're going to take the government out that's currently there, basically the terrorist government at this point, and they're going to try to basically restart the Strip in the image they want it to be. So it's a very lofty goal. This goal right here could end up either very good or very, very bad, depending on how this goes. But right now, that is the plan. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say, it's quite clear the Israelis are going to be invading the Gaza Strip, and it sounds as though they're going to be setting up an occupational government that's run by the state of Israel instead of by anyone living inside the Gaza Strip. But it is quite clear at this point they are going to be moving forward with it. So we'll just leave it at that because it is quite an interesting situation to say the least. But moving on out of the Middle East and on up into Ukraine, we also were able to hear a statement from Alexander Syrsky today on the idea of an end of the war. According to Syrsky, and his direct quotes, the war must end in a way that benefits us. That means we must win, not retreat. According to the commander-in-chief of Ukraine, which is Alexander Syrsky, Ukraine must inflict such losses on the enemy that is forced to end the war, not from a position of strength, but on Ukraine's terms. Making it incredibly clear that, at least from Syrsky's position, the Ukrainians are not going to be backing off or cowering away from the Russian negotiating position at the moment right now, which pretty much demands that the Ukrainians retreat and largely surrender. Nevertheless, moving on into some combat footage from the day, we were able to see some Ukrainian drones racing around the Bryansk Oblast, of all places, striking Russian positions near to the Ukrainian border. And this one's going into a little dugout with, oh, what's that? A D-30? Well, it's a D-nothing now.
Like a D-30, like a dozer?
No, a D-30 is in the artillery piece. These are one hell of an artillery piece. Oh, I see you know your doze as well. Good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp caterpillar? How dare you, sir?
Get your hands off my dozer!
Get your hands off my JCB! Oh, man. Anyways, moving on from that, we were not able to see any video or picture evidence coming out of the Sumy front today, or the Kursk front. So moving on down to our location unknowns, we were able to see, however, the 225th, which is based around the Sumy front, testing out a new drone munition. Check this thing out.
Oh, where is it?
Oh, it's right there.
Oh.
It's pretty strong. Apparently, this is going to be used by Ukrainian heavy bomber drones like the Baba Yaga that are operated by the 225th. Thing's got some firepower to it.
I would say.
Here's another test of it. I gotta say, a very impressive bomb overall. But moving on from that clip and on into our next one, we also got to hear of some Ukrainian forces in training. This is the 183rd Reserve Battalion, and the pictures went hard. I was like, wow, these look cool. The mud, not so much, but the pictures did come out incredibly good. I was like, dang, these are like thumbnail worthy almost. But still, pretty neat to see. And we like to see some pics that go hard from time to time, so feel free to screenshot. And I'm not going to give you all any time to screenshot, so I'm just playing, folks. You can click on the link in the description below and go to yourself if you want to screenshot it or get the picture files themselves, because they are incredibly cool looking. But moving on from that and into the Russian casualty report, we also were able to hear that the Russians are taking some pretty decent losses. Oh, no Bobcats, sadly.
Zero Bobcats. None. Zero.
But anyways, Miss Decent Keeper of the Records did say that it was a good day with numbers above average. Tanks and AFVs have jumped higher, so they haven't disappeared from the battlefield just yet, but they're getting there. 1,040 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 4 APCs, 130 supply trucks, 4 main battle tanks, 47 artillery pieces, 163 drones, and 1 MLRS. It was a very good day, all things considered. Moving on from that and on down the line, it's time for us to go through the battlefields in order. We have gotten no video and picture evidence from the Kupiansk front, but generally Ukrainian forces are holding. We have not gotten any video or picture evidence from the Savatove front, but from what we understand, the situation is stable. We have not gotten any video or picture evidence in the Severonsky forest. Fighting is heavy, but the front line is remaining stabilized. We also understand that situation is similar for the Seversk front. Fighting is continuing here, but we do not have any video or picture evidence, and the front is stable. The Bakhmut Bakhmut front is still stable. The Konstantinivka front is also stable, and this is where we get our first clip from the day, where we were able to see that some Ukrainian fiber optic drones of the Ukrainian police were also targeting and taking out some Russian equipment, including this BMP-3. Right down the hatch. Also, by the way, folks, this BMP-3 has been heavily modded, like to an extreme. It actually has its uncommon armor package on the side skirts here. This is supposed to protect against shape charges like RPGs or ATGMs. It doesn't really protect against APFSDS rounds. And we can also see it has its rubber flaps along the turret as well to try and protect from shape charges as well. We can then see some other Russian vehicles moving around the Toretsk area that are being targeted and slammed by the Ukrainian armed forces.
Hey, have you ever been checked for Toretsk?
Man, James Gandolfini, he was a talented actor.
Look at him slamming it. I love their outros, too. These outros are just fantastic right here. Some really good animations.
Dude, they work hard on the outros. Also, by the way, folks, we were able to hear that the water tap is back on in Donetsk, but it doesn't appear to be water. It appears to be Jolly Rancher raspberry-flavored water. Here's what's coming out of the tap right now in the city of Donetsk. It's literally perfectly blue, like an unreal-looking blue. It almost looks like Dawn dish detergent, but that's what's coming out of the tap.
Sound like she was choking on it, too.
Man, she's absolutely terrified by it. She's about to pan up in a second. This is what the crazy part is. It is legitimately coming out of the faucet.
That is crazy, honestly. I don't even know what the hell would be causing that.
I don't even know, honestly. The water shortage is still ongoing in Donetsk, and while this woman's getting a laugh out of the absurd situation, it is creating a major humanitarian crisis for hundreds of thousands of people within the area right now. Moving on out of Donetsk, however, and further down the front, we were not able to get any video and picture evidence from the Krasnodar front, but the front is remaining stable. We also understand that is the situation all the way from Velika Novosilka down to Kamyanske, is that the front is remaining stable, although there is fighting along the entirety of the front. But moving on down into Kherson, we finally do have some additional clips. First off, we were able to see this ammo detonation, and also at the beginning of this clip, we can see this guy walking around in briefs. That's one hell of an ammo detonation. We also got to see the folks who did it. It was none other than the Sheikh Mansour. Sheikh Mansour setting her up. We see them getting all of their MLRSs set up in position.
Really quite peaceful, actually.
Ah, yes, the nature. Like, it's wonderful.
That one guy right there, he's surveying the spot because you might want to build one of those American resorts here one day.
Man, he's like, wow, this would make a great place for a Dollar General. Like, man, it's like, wouldn't it? But now they're going to start firing.
It hits different every time. A little adrenaline rush each time.
Man, he went, woo! It's like, bro, he gets a kick out of war. Oh, that. And here comes the impacts. Were they dead on, or were they not? Well, just in case, they're going to do it again.
That's a hell of a beard on that guy right there.
Man, honestly, it is.
I don't think he's going to be able to don a gas mask properly.
Well, you know, it's a concern. It's a concern.
Oh, wow, they're giving it to him that time. Shake Mansour giving him that stuff down range, I tell you.
Man, they're adding in sound effects, man. Man, those are those copyright-free sound effects. Like, dude, in a second you're about to hear real sound or something like that, like, because it's copyright free. But man, impressive stuff. Also, by the way, I see some people talking about the beard, and they're like, why does he have a beard? They're the Sheikh Mansour, so they're actually Chechens who were fighting on the side of Ukraine. And Chechens, by religious faith, majority of them are actually Islamic. So for most of them, it's actually against their faith to shave their beards or pretty much cut them off. So that's why you'll see that a lot of soldiers in the Sheikh Mansour have full beards like that, because it's largely because of religious reasons, more though than any sort of a tactical or strategic purpose. But anyways, moving on from that and on down into the area of Crimea, we were able to see that the Ukrainians were able to hit and damage some Russian Redums. You can actually see the damage to them right here in the satellite pictures, clearly showing they've been screwed up. So pretty nice to see. We also were able to hear that some naval drones were spotted around the Kerch Strait earlier today, but we can't really say more than that at the moment, you know. We haven't heard of them making contact with the defense perimeter around the Kerch Bridge, so we don't know if they were going to Novorossiysk or if they're just wandering around out there looking for a target of opportunity. It's a little bit uncertain at the moment. But with it, folks, it is time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover a speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 1261 of news from around the world, and also news for more in Ukraine. So,
come on, Zelensky, tell us about the burning washing vessels, please, please.
It is time for me to tell you all what has happened today, and it's been some real trap shit. But nevertheless, here's the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні день багатьох розмов, консультацій з нашими партнерами. Вже говорив з канцлером Мерцем, президентом Макроном, президенткою Єврокомісії Урсулою фон дер Ляєн, також з директоркою Міжнародного валютного фонду Георгієвою, з прем'єр-міністром Албанії Рамою, і також у нас тут в Україні сьогодні була міністр закордонних справ Румунії. Це її перший візит в Україну після призначення на посаду. І що важливо в усіх цих розмовах, перше, всі партнери розуміють, хто повинен зробити кроки до завершення цієї війни. Це російська війна, це агресія Росії, саме Росія повинна піти на припинення вогню та на реальну дипломатію, яка може гарантувати мир. Україну чітко підтримують, і я за це дуже вдячний всім партнерам. Також всіх об'єднує розуміння того, що війна Росії проти України – це війна в Європі і проти Європи. Всі рішення, які будуть ухвалюватись, щоб закінчити цю війну, щоб гарантувати безпеку, дійсно стосуються всієї Європи, а не когось одного. Тому голос Європи має впливати на процес, і ми домовляємось з нашими європейськими лідерами щодо наших розмов та наших зустрічей, щоб узгодити всі позиції. Також щодо роботи кожного з нас з іншими лідерами, щоб позиції Європи були захищені. Ми плануємо деякі зустрічі на континенті. Третє. Звісно, кожен точно знає, що ключові рішення в Росії ухвалює одна людина. І що ця людина боїться санкцій Сполучених Штатів Америки. І що справедливо, щоб Україна була учасницею перемовин. Війна Росії проти України, проти нашої незалежності, як уособлення незалежності кожної європейської нації. Тож формат зустрічей лідерів – це, зокрема, тристоронній формат, і ми про це вчора детально говорили. Про кілька двосторонніх форматів, про тристоронній формат, про всі можливості. Я вдячний президенту Трампу за відкритість до пошуку дійсно рішень. Ми в Україні впевнені, що цю війну можна закінчити тривалим миром. Але всі кроки мають бути дуже виваженими, саме такими, які спрацюють. Хороші є сигнали від МВФ про готовність підтримувати Україну і надалі. Так само чіткі і хороші сигнали від Євросоюзу. Я дякую. Сьогодні відбудеться ще розмова безпекових радників України інших країн Європи, також американського представника. Буде там представник президента Трампа. Всі деталі обговорять. Нам потрібні дійсно скоординовані та максимально пропрацьовані підходи у дипломатії. Сьогодні ж говоритиму ще з головою уряду Італії Джорджіо Мелоні. Вона завжди дає гарні поради. Я дякую всім, хто з нами, хто з Україною. І пам'ятаємо, нас підтримує в єдності весь світ, поки ми самі у єдності захищаємо Україну, наші національні інтереси, нашу незалежність. Робимо все, щоб завершити війну миром, достойним миром. Слава Україні!
Героям
Героям слава!
And with that, it is time for us to take the chance to talk to each and every one of you. And I have to say that it is a fun thing to be able to take the moment to talk to all of you. But nevertheless, I have to always remind you all that it is Ukraine that is worth fighting for. I am from the streets of Kryvyi Rih, and if I understand anything, it's real shit out on those streets. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on to the second segment of the stream, where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And it's an incredibly fun segment. It really is, because we get to talk about literally anything and everything that y'all want to talk about, unless if it's one of these three things: religion, politics, or climate change. We'll never talk about that one again. But beyond that, it is time for us to get on into question segment 2.0. We will, of course, be addressing all super chatters first. And then we get to second group of people where we get to talk to all live chatters as well, hopefully. But beyond that, Matthew, what do we've got? Do we have great questions or do we have questions?
And we have a lot of live chat questions. I would like to thank President Trump. But anyways,
President
man, the way he
Trump.
says that kills me. Also, the wicked Wesson Wessels. But anyways, moving on to our super chat segment here. Now it's time for the most anticipated part of the stream, which is the question segment. We're going to get our super chats and our live chats on our Morse code decoders as well. But jumping right into our first super chat, this one goes to Wubba, who puts in a $25 donation. And thank you very much, Wubba, for that support. We appreciate that. He said gas station coffee fund for the HQ 3.0 move.
Hey, thank you so much for the support, Wubba, and helping this channel to keep running, because, of course, we love to have gas station coffee funds. We gotta have them, because eventually, Enforcer HQ 3.0 is gonna be moving to Salt Lake City in Utah. If you're a fan from Salt Lake City in Utah, the Enforcer is coming to you, and it's most likely here to stay. So, y'all better be getting ready, because it'd be a damn crazy thing. It'd be a crazy thing. It's going to be happening soon. So I'm looking forward to it, to be entirely honest with y'all. So a big thanks to you so much for giving support. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well, Wubba. And with that, Matthew, I understand that we have one from James Hughes. What do we got, Matthew? What do we have?
And we do have one from James Hughes. James put in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, James, for that very generous support. And that is very generous of you. And the largest super chat of the night. We do appreciate that. James said, does Ukraine have enough? 500 tanks, 2,500 armored vehicles, 150 fighters, and 100 choppers for air support for a big offensive. And Ukraine will also have to knock out logistics. And I think they are a year away and shouldn't do it this year.
I would have to say, James Hughes, that's an interesting question. And as far as are they ready to conduct a big offense, yes. Zelensky walks up into the Kremlin, gets his arms squared up, and he says, Putin, you're a big bitch. And so they can conduct a big offense.
Big offense.
Man, this is a real big offense. I didn't say offensive. Very big thing. Very big difference. Have you said thank you? Yes, I have. Thank you, Putin, for letting me call you a bitch. but anyways, beyond that, I had to say that as far as Ukraine ready to conduct a major offensive, it's not really about the material number of vehicles or weapon systems they have. It has more so to do with ammunition. And as far as ammunition, it's running a little low. So I would generally say that they probably cannot conduct an offensive this year. They probably would have to wait until next year. Hopefully, large amounts of support from the United States and Europe will be flowing in over the course of that time. and then they might be able to conduct a major offensive. But even still, I don't really think the war at this point is about conducting major offensives. I think that it's more important for the Ukrainians to be on the defensive and just wait for the Russians to wear themselves out, because at this point, it's only a matter of time before the Russians have to give up. They really don't have a choice at this point. So with that, a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, James Hughes. I hope that does address that question incredibly well. At least from what I would say, or what I would think at least, because, I might not know everything, but one thing I do know is that you've got to wiretap them. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to go to none other than Old Warrior once again. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for the second support of the night. He throws in a 20 this time, and he says, not meaning to open a can of worms, but Neil deGrasse Tyson put out a great vid today. That's the wrong Tyson, by the way. Sorry. But he said the link between Milankovitch cycles and climate change. Oh my God.
God.
It's worth a look at the science of Earth physics.
Oh, God. Old Warrior. He did it. Sound the alarm. We will not talk about that again. Do you know what happened in here last time, Old Warrior, that word, climate change, was brought up? People started killing each other. We can't talk about it. Like really, we can't. We just had to ban someone because even just mentioning that we couldn't talk about it made some people go mental. No joke. Like even just saying we can't talk about religion, politics, or climate change. So it's it's crazy, honestly. Like out of everything that would get people going, that was the one that I expected the least. Like, honestly, like, I'll be entirely honest with you. I thought that was just going to be like a conversational topic like any other that we bring up here on the channel, like, why are the rising costs in America making life difficult for the next generations? Or the dropping fertility rates? I thought it was going to be something like that. Like, where people just talked about it rationally and sensibly. And they may have had differing opinions, but at the same time, everyone could talk about it like rational people. But it got brutal. It was, I think you were here for it, Old Warrior. It was a legitimate melee. So I'll have to keep my thoughts or opinions on that reserved to myself. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it does sound interesting. But to... Yeah, I'll take a look.
Don't do it.
I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at it. I was actually going to speak about Neil deGrasse Tyson. But I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at it. I'll withhold from the comment. But still, a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. I got to thank you so much once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And goodness gracious, people are already starting to get a little bit angry about this. Just drop it, people. Drop it. We're not even mentioning it. It's just it's a thing, okay, folks? Like, if you think the world's getting warmer, or if you think it's getting colder, it does not matter. Don't worry, folks. It's okay, because if you all disagree with each other, the world ain't going to end, okay? It's just a little thing. Let's not get crazy about it here. But beyond that,
another one. Another one that sets people off is if you bring up Greta Thunberg, like that sends people off the cliff. Like when you start talking about that person. Yeah, the one that's like on those rafts, like trying to do that little raft trick or whatever, like heading toward Israel and stuff.
Oh, well, she was like...
Is that the one that did? Wasn't she the one that did that?
I think it's Greta Thunberg, I think's the name, but...
Thunberg?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, Thunberg. Thunberg? Is it?
Thunberg,
did I get it wrong?
Apparently.
What did I say?
Yeah, it's apparently, you said like Thunderberg or something like that. I was like, Thunderberg? Oh. That's what I said. I was like, Thunderberg? The hell's a Thunderberg?
Well, I thought it was Thunderberg for a minute, but I guess it's Thunberg or something like that. I didn't know. I don't know the person that well, so that's why.
Greta Thunderbird out here.
Well, honestly, it sounds better. Like Thunderberg sounds better than Thunberg.
I'm gonna be honest with y'all, folks. Though I think she's a woman at this point. Like she's over 18 or something. She is quite annoying. Like I think a lot of people can agree on that. I don't even think that's really a divisive statement. She's just quite annoying. But anyways, we are moving on to the next one before we start Firestorm.
And our next one goes to Chargy, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Chargy, for that $20 support as well. And Chargy said, it looks like the Southeast may be getting closer to some in-and-out action soon. And LLT, LSA, and T1 FTC.
Hey, and that's great to hear, actually. In-N-Outs finally coming to the Southeast. You will be able to get the exquisite fast food experience of the American Southeast. I don't know if it's like this around the rest of the country. It never really seems the case when we travel. But here in the Southeast, this is the experience. You go up to the window. You go up to the fast food place. What you want? You tell them your order. You pull up. And then you pull up. Your total's this. And then you give them your card. And then it takes about 7 minutes. They treat you like shit, like you're not supposed to be there. And then they throw the food at you and you leave. That's the average
And who
fast
does
food.
that?
Every fast food restaurant in the South, except for Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, yeah. I think there's very few that actually give you good service. The rest of them is kind of like you feel a little bit sketched out, like you're going to them a little bit.
Yeah, like you sit there and you wonder, what are they doing with the food? Like sometimes that started to happen a lot recently, especially weirdly enough in the past 2 months. But beyond that, I would have to say, still beyond the treatment, which is a standard here in the Southeast, I can't wait for In-N-Out to get here. The sad thing, however, is that we probably won't be around for it because we are going to be in Salt Lake City by that point, and I think that Salt Lake City has In-N-Out map. Oh no, it's not actually. Well, wait a minute. Well, it is. Oh, it is. It's only in Salt Lake City in Utah. Like,
Yeah, I told you
crazy.
that. I mean, I got it out there when I was driving around. I stopped by and got some. Remember, I sent you a picture of it.
Yeah, you did. You did. I totally forgot. Get the hell out of here. But beyond that, it is nice to see they do have some. They do have some. So we will be able to have In-N-Out. Yay, hippie. But also, look, it's a heat map of the In-N-Outs.
Well, I was getting hot in Salt Lake City, I'll tell you.
Man.
That's like something to make an exception for in Salt Lake City. So they can't drink coffee, but they can eat an In-N-Out burger. I mean, it's so good.
Man, I'm telling you what, man, it's just bussin' unequivocally. But it's an interesting thing, you know, the heat maps. Very interesting. Also, Culver's. Culver's is more widespread at this point, apparently, than In-N-Out. Culver's is okay. Like, Culver's is pretty good in some instances. Like, the pot roast burgers that they have are actually pretty smacking. Like, they're pretty decent. But most of the other things on the menu, they're kind of bland. But I do like the cheese sort of stuff that they have, like the pretzels with the cheese dip and the cheese curds and all that. That's really good. So it's great to know that we have a couple of them here in Alabama. And apparently they're, like, trying to take over Florida. Like, there's loads of them down there, apparently. So... Well, I hope that does address that well. But you know, folks, my favorite fast food chain, my favorite one, it's going to be much to the disagreement of many. It's Taco Bell. I think Taco Bell is actually kind of decent.
I don't like that stuff. Taco Bell doesn't do me right. And also, I just don't like it. It all tastes the same. It's like just different shapes, but it's not even different flavors. It's like different shapes of like taco. It's the same like mush in all of them. I just don't like it. To me, it's like you have to be like out of your mind or drunk to really like Taco Bell.
What the hell are you talking about, man? It's slop. Like, it's decent tasting cheap slop. I like it for that reason. It's calorically there. Like, there's meat, there's cheese, there's some sour cream, and that's about it. Like, it's not that bad, you know? It's not that bad. And I see some people, thank you everyone for coming in here and appreciating it, and Boba Vasquez throwing out the truth. It's decent and cost effective. And it's the biggest one to me because it's cost effective. You can get like 1,200 calories worth of Taco Bell food for about $4 these days. If you got 1,200 calories of food at any other restaurant, a fast food restaurant that is, it's going to cost you about $16 to $18. So in cost effectiveness for the quality, it's pretty decent.
Yeah, but that 1,200 calories is gonna be beating your ass for the next 24 hours. So like, you're gonna be fighting for your life.
Dude, it never bothers me, man. I'm like a tank with that stuff. I eat it. I'm fine.
I don't know. Like, I'm just not a fan of it personally. Like, I'm just not a fan.
Man, shoot, man. I don't even understand because Taco Bell's nationwide. And also for people saying it's crappy Mexican food, it's not Mexican. It's Tex-Mex. Totally different thing. And I know that sounds like it's made up. Like, what the hell is Tex-Mex? That isn't even a thing. It's actually a thing. Like, I'll actually go and show this to y'all really quickly. Tex-Mex. Here we are. Let me go pull this up. Here we are. Tex-Mex. It's a thing. It's a mix of Texan and Mexican cuisine. It's a fairly American kind of a thing. And it looks pretty damn like Taco Bell. And Taco Bell pretty much is Tex-Mex exported across the country, is the best way to explain it. So that's why it doesn't seem like Mexican food. It technically isn't. So, you know, just to clarify that, because people always put it in the Mexican food category, which is a great disservice because it's not Mexican food. It's Tex-Mex fast food, a totally different thing. But anyways, Well, that I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can, and inform some people about a new category of food that you may have not heard about before, unless you're from the great state of Texas. Because everything's bigger in Texas, including suburb hell. Because Dallas is the expert at suburb hell. Look at it; it goes on and on and on in every direction. Funnily enough, folks, if the entire world had the population density of Dallas, Texas, and we took everyone and put them in one giant city with the same population density as Dallas, that city would literally take up the entirety of the United States of America, pretty much the whole of the lower 48.
Just from Dallas?
Yeah, like let me go pull that up. If the world as one city population map. Let me go see if I can find this. Here we are. So, oh, dang. Well, actually, it's Houston, but the population densities of Dallas and Houston are fairly similar. But this is the map. So, if everyone in the world, all 9 billion people, were crammed into. I'm trying to see if I can get a bigger one of these. Were crammed into one city with the population density of a major city somewhere in the world. This would be Paris. It would just be Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. San Francisco would be Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas. New York would be just the state of Texas. So all 9 billion people in the world could fit in just the state of Texas alone. London is pretty much the entirety of the surrounding area, including Texas. Singapore is Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. And then Houston, which has about the same population density as Dallas, I think Dallas is even less sparse than Houston, would pretty much take up most of the lower 48. So suburb hell, in short.
Yeah, really, honestly, it seems like it. I'll be honest, the more I looked at Dallas, like I'm not hating on Dallas, by the way. If you live there, because we have a lot of viewers that live in Texas, not like hating on the place, but it's just not really my place. Like after I realized, okay, how would I really like to live here, like nonstop? It's very flat. It's very suburb hellish when you go outside of Dallas toward the north part of it, and it's extremely cookie cutter. And also, it's just like it's like corporation mega hell. Like there's just a bunch of fast food places. There's nothing really super unique out there. You really have to hunt for it to find something unique. I'm like, I don't know. Like it looks nice on the surface, but long term, I don't think so. That's why I moved to Salt Lake City. Like as the next option because I was like, that seems like a nice scenery. Like if you get tired of like being in the city, you just go right out to the scenery. But you can't really do that in Dallas. You just go out to the flatlands.
Yeah, it really is honestly crazy. And also another thing is that when you look at it, this is a place that gets me Plano. When you look at Plano from satellite view, it literally it is suburb hell. You have the residential zoning, and then at the corners of the major intersections, there's a little commercial space. It's suburb hell. That's literally the definition of it. And so you have to drive endlessly to make it to anywhere beyond your normal corner store outlets. And that's not a life for me, folks. I don't like the whole suburb hell thing that's been designed in America. I like it when the cities are a lot more organic, like the classic cities. Like for example, let's see, Boston, which is extremely violent. But beyond that, Boston's a pretty decent city layout. It organically grew, and it's got a mix of residential and commercial literally sitting on top of each other. So that's a pretty decent kind of a layout. And it's fairly compact, so that's also good. New York City has a lot of issues, but beyond that, they do have a pretty good sort of a layout and a general kind of a style and sort of a urban planning sort of a system to it. Because I will say this, in my personal opinion, folks, I think that modern American urban planning is quite truly brain dead. I don't even understand it because it does, like, the entire concept is everyone has a car, which is not always the case. And we're not going to build out public transport. So most of these areas are going to have no connection to public transport at all. And then we're just going to sit there and make people get around this thing. It takes an hour to get anywhere, just one way, not two way. It takes an hour to get anywhere. So most of your days just sitting in a car, riding around to get nowhere. And that's an absolutely stupid kind of a structure. It's a lot better, honestly, to have a greater population density in a far more compact area to make it more livable, more walkable, and more enjoyable. And also on top of that, one thing that people don't really realize is that if you cram everyone down into a more compact area, yes, it's going to be more cramped in terms of population density, but you are also able to make a lot of municipal facilities that don't exist in urban sprawl like this. Like, look at this in here. Where in the world are there real parks? Not many. Like, and if there are, they're incredibly small and they're an afterthought. Like this one, the Preston Meadow Park. I mean, that's literally attached to an elementary school. Like, that's hardly even a park. Over here, look at this. The Jack Carter Park, once again, a smaller park and just a playground. It's like, don't people want to have like larger parks for families in general, not just, a playground, but just a nice sort of a green area, like a village green, say, in most areas, just a couple of blocks apart from each other, to be able to hang out and just get some sunlight in the day. Like, wouldn't that be nice? Like, none of this seems like it was actually planned hardly at all beyond, okay, let's cram in as many houses as we can, couple of commercial spaces, F them. There's no public transport, there's no nice parks, and on top of that, the amount of paving that's done is unreal. So a lot of municipal budget, because there's so many roads that you have to keep up in the city like this, just ends up going into road maintenance. You can hardly put anything else in
Well, the
any
tolls
other...
are crazy around there. Like, the tolls are everywhere. Like, you can't really go anywhere on the main road without getting tolled.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, there's just so many roads compared to the population density that it pretty much takes all of the municipal budget, including toll roads, to just pay for the roads, to keep them up at a minimum level. And then they all end up decaying, and then it looks like shit because there's so many roads that have to be paved, and there's only so much money to go around to do it. And so you just end up in this sort of a halfway hell sort of a thing, really, is the best way to describe the suburbs. I think it was a lot better back when cities were designed with a great deal of density. Because look at this. This is the road structure that existed in old Dallas before it blew up. It wasn't that big. And there was a decent amount of people living in this area. Look at any city. Like, you can actually tell where the new urban sprawls popped up. Because look at Birmingham. You can see the very dense sort of a street and population structure that once existed here, and then all of the urban sprawl that was attached to that. Everywhere in America, it's like that. You can tell everything that was built out after the 1950s because it was built with the new zoning laws that pretty much are nationwide, which makes it absolutely impossible, really, to create any sort of high-density structures anywhere. So it's a little bit crazy like that, and I don't really like it too much because, another thing is that whenever any urban planners get a hold of anything, they don't think with their brains, and it really just gets me angry because they sit there and go, "Oh yes, the arteries." Like, they literally do that. They're like, the arteries, like the interstates. Let's have everyone pack onto the interstates, getting to their work in the morning and getting back home in the morning. So that way we can make it the most miserable experience ever. You're sitting on an interstate in a car for like 2 hours just to get home. In hell. Like, you can't go anywhere. Your car can't leave. You're stuck there on the interstate for 2 hours to get home every day. Because when we went to law school, there's an infamous road in Birmingham, and everyone has to travel on it if you want to get anywhere in Birmingham, and it's Highway 280. Really, if you're in Birmingham on the southern end, that's the road you have to take. Every single one of them filters onto that highway. Getting back from our law school or college, it would take a whole hour and a half or 2 hour commute to make it about 10 miles in the car. It's an absolutely insane kind of a thing. Like, it's nuts. It would be better to have a greater deal of population density and make travel time shorter and have a great deal more of civil amenities within that smaller area than it would be to have sprawl like this, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe so. I think that might be a better idea.
Yeah, now it's all been built out, so there's really no way to change it, but this was an absolute mistake. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion. And that, folks, was my TED Talk on urban planning and urban sprawl. But anyways, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Richard Hawkins, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Richard, for that $50 support. That is the second largest super chat of the night, and we do appreciate that. And he said, "Boys, you're in luck. There are 10 in-and-outs in Utah." And I know, I saw 2 or 3 of them. He said, "You will need to learn about their secret menu." And I know about it, but I was like too pressed for time to try it last time. And he said, "Taco Bell does not belong in the same conversation." And I agree.
What? Bailiff? Ban this man. I'm just kidding, by the way, Richard Hawkins. But I'll have to say, I'm gonna stick to my guns on Taco Bell. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I like Taco Bell for value reasons. It's good for the value. But beyond that, I would have to say we are in luck, and I have never had an In-N-Out burger. I'm dying to try one because I've heard from everyone it's great, and I've never had one. So hopefully one day soon I will be able to have a delicious In-N-Out Boyga. And hopefully I'll be able to try out the secret menu too. I hope I will be able to one day, Richard Hawkins. But I got to thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to be able to grow a fund so that way we can try out all the items on the secret menu of the In-N-Out Burger shops. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one. I see the people are battling in the chat over Taco Bell. Taco Bell is cheap. Let him have his Taco Bell slop. Dane, thank you, Doodle Pimp, for putting it out there real. I will have my Taco Bell slop. Thank you. This channel is pretty much fueled most times off of Taco Bell slop, at least on my end. On the monologues, that's pure Taco Bell slop fueling it. Matthew, on the other hand, he likes to cook. He's been getting back to cooking lately. And it's finally moving us away from the average slop. We're actually having good food again, so it's an improvement for morale, you all know. But still, I hope that does address that well. Because I'm going to stick by Taco Bell through thick and thin. Damn it, they might spit in your food, but it's that delicious Taco Bell spit. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, by the way. They don't do that. But anyways, also, by the way, folks, I would not eat food if it had spit in it. That's just disgusting. But I had to make that clear just in case someone's like, ew, and think I'm, like, unironically saying that. I'm clearly ironically saying that. But anyways, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to JC Adkins, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, JC, as well.
Hey!
He said, you mentioned Batman's penguin. Where is the LSA's penguin? I haven't seen him since work released my nights again. And a sincere question from the favorite LSA Navy NCO.
We have an LSA penguin? I actually didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah,
Is he talking about the croak or is he talking about the animal?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know. I didn't know the LC had a penguin. I'd never seen one on stream, at least in my memory. I might be mistaken. But still, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, JC Atkins. And unfortunately, I think the penguin will have to wait. I don't think we have an LSA penguin. But I do thank you for being our favorite LSA Navy NCO. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat in the meantime. And you're honored, JC Atkins. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Bia Arthur from the live chat, who said, is the imposed POTUS August 8th deadline for Russia now downplayed, or is it still significant today and tomorrow? And will the POTUS react if nothing happens?
Oh, that's a great question. I wouldn't really know. It's impossible to say. And I'm kind of biting my tongue on it because if I criticize the president, a lot of people take that as being political. But I kind of have to because it's really annoying on my end on the analytical side of things because we try our best to be able to forecast what's going to happen, to not be able to forecast what's going to happen because he could do anything. Like as far as this president goes, he could say, tomorrow I am going to sign an executive order. And then the next day comes tomorrow, and instead of signing an executive order, he's flying off to, Texas or something. And then everyone's like, oh, well, what happened to the executive order? Executive order? What executive order? You're fake news. And it's impossible to even know what he's doing because he'll just say something and then just not even follow through on it. And then he'll do the complete opposite. Or he could say something like, I'm going to go to war with Russia. And then the next day, he's actually saying we need to create a military alliance with the Russians. Or he could say, we're going to make a military alliance with the Russians. And then the next day after that, he'll say, we hate the Russians and we actually want to kill everyone in Russia. And it's just completely impossible to even know what the hell he's going to do. And that's not something to be proud of. It's not at all. You generally want to be formulaic with what you do as a president, because a lot of people in the country are counting on you to be certain and true in what you're doing. Otherwise, it starts causing chaos, and chaos can start affecting the markets. Chaos can start affecting the stability inside of the country. It can start affecting a lot of things. So you want to make it incredibly clear what's going to be happening. Because a lot of people back in the day like to go with the madman kind of a leader philosophy, like Nixon. Nixon liked to generally approach the Soviets or any communist country as Madman Nixon. Nobody knows what he's really going to do. But it was nobody knew what he was really going to do if you pushed him. Like, if you pushed him, something was going to happen, but how bad was it going to get? They didn't know. And was it going to be freaking insane? The answer was most likely yes. That's what he at least wanted people to think. And those kinds of examples are where you're unpredictable, but it's still formulaic in how you'll respond. Like, if the Soviet Union sat there and said, we just depth charged a U.S. submarine. It wasn't going to be sitting there, oh, man Nixon, he might just end up making an alliance with the Russians, or he might end up killing them all. It was, no, you just depth charged a nuclear submarine, a U.S. nuclear submarine. Chances are he's probably going to end up trying to kill everyone in Russia. At least that's what the kind of madman philosophy was. And how he was going to go about that, you didn't really know, but you knew that was coming around the corner. Sitting here and just doing flip-flop waffling stuff every day, it makes it impossible to even know where our country is heading. And that's something that I also don't like either, because with being a leader, you have to put out a clear image of where the nation's heading. It doesn't really matter what direction. Like, you could be the current president, the former president, or the candidate in 2024 that lost for the other party. You could be any of them. But the thing is that as a leader, regardless of which one you are, you have to be able to set clear vision for where the country is going to be in 4 or 8 years, or where we're heading. And that's something that is sorely amiss in the current administration and the prior one, but especially in this one, because the last one practically did nothing as far as foreign policy went. They just sit around and do literally nothing. But because they did nothing, you knew the minimal response was going to be very formulaic. But the current administration does a lot, but it does it in every single direction at the same time. And that's absolutely ridiculous. And also, it's not like he's chosen by God to lead this country and he's king and he can just do whatever he wants and, the people are at his whim. He's elected. So you generally, in a democratic sort of a system, have an understanding or at least a belief that you owe the citizenry to be somewhat formulaic and to be able to know and understand where you're coming from and what's about to be happening. And that makes it pretty much impossible for me to tell you what's going to be happening tomorrow, because he could double down and he could end up moving forward with this implementation of sanctions, or he might just end up acting like it didn't even happen at all. And it's just completely impossible to tell which. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A huge thanks to you once again for the support. But I got to be honest with you, it aggravates me a great deal on the analysis side of things, this whole deal, because it's impossible to analyze it. Whenever y'all ask me a question about, oh, what's the president going to do? I'm like, I have no clue. And honestly, that's the other thing that's really annoying, is that nobody even in the cabinet knows what he's going to do. Like the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, they just come out and say, the president will do what he wants to do. And that means we literally don't even know what the hell he wants to do. He hasn't even told us what he'd do, given the situation. Like, there's clear things that are going to happen in the world. It's like either the Russians are going to accept a ceasefire or they're not. And if the president had any real decision-making abilities, he would be telling his cabinet at least, of his secretaries, he would be saying, okay, so if this happens, this is what we're going to be doing. And if this other thing happens, this is also what we're going to be doing. And everyone would be on that page to be able to generally give some hints to the public, okay, this is what's going to be happening if they do this or that. They don't even have that. So we even know at the highest levels in the cabinets, in these different departments, like the Department of State and the Department of Defense, they don't even know. Like, they have no clue. So then they sit there and go to the public and they go, oh, he's going to decide whatever the hell he wants. He doesn't even have the respect to even tell them what's going on. He just kind of decides in the final hour or at the very last minute, and then everyone's got to go, okay, so that's what we're doing. And then it also makes long-term planning for a governmental level completely impossible, because none of the secretaries of different governmental departments even know what's happening next week. So then you just got to play it by ear. So there's never any long-term chess planning or strategy or gaming to it that's going on. It's literally just responding at the tip of a hat as to what's happening or what's going to be happening. And it's an incredibly annoying thing, to put it that way lightly. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Hope people understand. I'm not getting political with that. That's just more so a common sense perspective, I'd hope. So, if you disagree with that, then tell your boss to start becoming incredibly unpredictable at work and see how you like it. That's probably the best thing I can tell you. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Mr. Biscuit, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Mr. Biscuit, for that $20 support. He said, I live in Townsville, North Queensland, Australia. It is a garrison city with an Air Force base as well. And they've been gearing up for months for this exercise. And if you like, have a street view of the Strand Beach front in LSA.
And thank you for the support, Mr. Biscuit. And let's take a little gander around there. North Queensland in Australia. That would be North Queensland. So Townsville, you say? Yeah, it's Townsville right here. Garrison City. And where's your garrison? Let's see here. Oh, let's see here. Where in the world would the garrison be? Let's see here. Uh-huh. I can't find it. At least here in the satellite picture. Not down you, though. It's just that I can't find this thing. But let's take a look at the Strand Beach.
I think they ought to open the garrisons for the public.
I think that the worms need to live because they have a life too. But
I think that every security door for the garrison should be manned by at least one qualified worm each.
Man, that worm be sitting there. Make sure to tell them to store the meat at a higher temperature so my brethren can survive. Yes, worm, I do as you command. But beyond that, here's the Strand Park. Oh, that's really nice, actually. Look at that. Wow.
Oh, that is nice. Look at that.
Man, pristine beaches. Man. Wow. Makes you want to go out there and go, what's up, beaches? And I have a feeling they'd respond quite well. But really beautiful stuff, actually. Really neat. And also really cool to know that this is a garrison town, actually. But beyond that, let's see if we can get a... What is this? Wow, it's like a little tide pool kind of a thing.
It's a place that fosters worm community. It's a great place. I like it.
This allows for the worms to spread in the water and get into everyone's brains. But oh my God, that person may actually have some worms. But bro, that guy was like, I don't know what that was, whether it was mud or shit. I could not tell. But beyond that, though, very nice looking, I will say. Very nice for sure. You know, one day I would like to go to Australia. It's just so far away. Like the flight distances, I think, are like 16 hours or something like that to Australia from America. I would love to go here, though, and see it myself, because it is a really cool place. It's just that flying anywhere over the Pacific, it takes forever. And 8-hour flight to Britain, it was actually 8.5 hours, was quite long, especially in economy. Whew, that's rough. A 12-hour flight to Japan in economy, oh man. Or 16 to Australia, I don't know if I could take it, honestly.
Oh man, could you imagine what a first class ticket cost going that far? It's probably like four or $5 grand or something.
How much would that be, Matthew? Let's pull it up. Birmingham to Sydney. Let's see, Birmingham.
First class.
Woo! Oh my God! Round trip, it's $1,200. In economy, it's
for
not
first class. Oh,
let
I was
me.
about to say that's actually not bad for first class. That's not too bad at all. But $1,200 for economy, that's pretty steep.
So let's see here, Matthew. How do you pick first class only?
Should be a button at the top. I can't see anything.
Let's see here. Okay, I'll bring it over here. So how do we change it? Oh, here we
it's
are.
up there at the top. Yeah, there you go. First.
Oh my God! Oh,
What does that say? 2,000?
$27,000
$27,000 to do what?
to ride in first class.
That's the ticket?
That's the ticket, round trip.
That's unbelievable.
My God, look at the pricing.
29,000 for what? I mean, what the hell do you get?
Dude, they better be giving me a free plane for the price of that ticket. That's insane. That's the price of a car.
Hell, I better go home with like a private jet as like a parting gift or something for that. That's crazy. Like how that is 27 times more expensive than economy. Like surely the experience isn't that good. And 33 hours and 44 minutes.
That's why we can't go to Australia. We would have to save up the kind of income we make on this channel for maybe 5 years to be able to ever find it within our budget to be able to fly to Australia in first class. Like legitimately.
I'm gonna wipe my life savings out to take this trip to Australia just on the flights alone.
So business class, just the middle way, 14,000 for business. It is 3,500 for premium economy. And economy cattle class is only $1,200. So that is literally the only way you can make it to Australia and make it fiscally responsible is in economy. Because if you go in any other class, it is insane. Like economy, premium economy is $3,500 for a round trip. That's mental. That is freaking insane. Let's go look at Tokyo. How about the
Man,
flights?
I'll tell you what. If I did that, I'd be up there eating those peanuts, crying my eyes out. If I knew I spent my life savings on one flight to Australia, I'd be out there like I'd be chomping those peanuts. I'd be like, I'm gonna make these count.
So you know what doesn't even make any sense, Matthew, is that flights to Tokyo are more expensive than flights to Sydney, although they're about a half the time in length. So what the hell does a first class ticket look like? Oh my god! Oh my god! It's 30
30,000.
grand! Oh my
Damn.
god! There ain't no way. There's no way in hell that you would find me on a first class flight to anywhere outside of the United States. Anywhere. This is insane. You might as well
What type of
charter.
plane do you fly on at least? Is it like an A380 or something?
Let's see here. It's Embraer 170 from Birmingham to Chicago, and then you fly from Chicago to Los Angeles in a 737. And then you get on to a A350. That's not even new. That's not even new. Oh my god, that's wait, well, hold up. Actually, it is new. Sorry, correction, everyone. It is new. Sorry, I thought it was
The XWB is new, I think.
Well, these are fairly new. For some reason, man, I was thinking in my head that it was an A340, which is like Airbus's first like commercially produced like long range passenger plane. Like that's what I was thinking for a second. It's not though. It's the A350, which is fairly new. But I got to be honest with y'all. Just got to be straight up with y'all. I don't really. What in the world? So you have to fly Japan Airlines. So what Japan Airlines first class A350?
Hell, would you rather take a cruise over there from the USA to Australia or take a flight because the cruise isn't much cheaper? Let's see. There's a 93-day cruise that starts at $18,000 a person. I mean, 93 days. That's like, let's see. That's
3 months.
That's 3 months. 3 months for 18 grand. I mean, that seems like a better deal than the plane, but that's still like crazy expensive.
Dude, you could probably open up an ocean liner company and get a ticket on an ocean liner to Tokyo in first class, cheaper than the plane. And you probably get a lot more bang for the buck, a lot more meals, a lot more time on the ship. Like this is what first class on an A350 on Japan Airlines looks like, by the way. So that is what you get, but you only get it for 11 hours and 10 minutes. 11 hours.
So
and
wait
10
a minute.
minutes.
So I don't know how it works with these travel YouTubers, but everybody knows who like Sam Chewy is and these other like plane reviewers. They're taking like these like exquisite first class flights. Are they getting these flights for free from the airlines, or are they paying for them? Because if they're paying, they've got some crazy overhead on their YouTube channels.
I don't think they could ever recoup, honestly, off of the viewership that they get, the cost. Like, they're literally going into the black hole on cost. I have a feeling they're getting them for, like, free or at a significant discount, though, because there's no way in hell, man, that they would be able to afford to do those kinds of videos.
Yeah, you really honestly couldn't. They have to be getting something for free. So Brian said they use miles. Man, do you know how many miles you'd have to cover $30,000? You'd have to be like spending millions a month to like rack up miles like that. You'd have to be a big spender, like a billionaire or something, with like a crazy credit card to do that. I don't think they're using miles on it. I don't know. Like they have to be getting free flights. You can't make 30 grand on a YouTube video. Like I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. 30 grand on a YouTube video. That's like, I'm not even sure if Mr. Beast makes that on AdSense. That's crazy right there.
This is just insane. So how much does it cost these days to fly to London in the United Kingdom? Let's go to Heathrow, which is the common one. So first class, look at this. How does this make any sense? This is only 11,000 for first class, while flying to Tokyo is 30 grand. It's like, and the flight time is only a couple hours longer. So it's like, where in the world does that cost come in?
I think it's because the flights are more frequent. Like, there's more people trying to get there. There's less people trying to get to Australia. That's why the flights are more expensive.
Maybe, but that is so hold up. Let's ask the question. How much does it cost? If there is any flights at all. Hey, there's no flights to Moscow. Screw those assholes. Well, let's see. Let's go to, what about Beijing? What's up, Beijing? Let's go see. No American flights to Beijing. I like this.
You have the airline set to American Airlines right there, by the way.
Oh, whoopsie daisy. Let's take a
American's
look.
definitely not flying to Moscow. I can tell you that. You got to go Air China or Air Koryo.
Man, you ain't taking Air Koryo, my boy. Like, you ain't taking
Air Koryo couldn't. They don't have any planes with a range like that on it to even fly that far.
Look at this. You stop in Dubai on this flight. Um,
What's the plane and what's the airline?
let's see here. You've got to fly United to George Bush Intercontinental Airport. Where the hell is that even? Where the hell is that
Oh,
place?
look, you get to get on the A380 on the second flight.
Oh, look. And then you get
That's
on the
pretty cool.
777 after that. Legendary lineup.
That's a aviation person's dream right there, honestly. Emirates has got some baller planes, like I will say.
They've got some baller planes. You just better not kiss your wife or your girlie while you're in the UAE. You will be arrested for that. But let's see. This one isn't really that baller. This is a 767 and an A350. Wait a minute. What the hell, dude? This costs $33,000 to fly to Beijing. I just saw this. You fly from Birmingham to Dallas. You get on Japan Airlines, an A350 in first class to Dallas Fort Worth to Haneda Airport. That's going to Tokyo. And then you fly to Beijing after that, and it's still cheaper. How the hell does that work?
Go back and check it again now that you took the American filter off and see if it gives you a different price. Because American might be charging out the kazoo, like because they don't fly there often or something. So let's see if it changes.
No, it's still
No,
close
barely.
barely a change. So wait a minute, hang on. If y'all don't know, Haneda Airport is let me make sure it's not. Yeah, it's this one. So you fly for the same price, which makes no damn sense. From Dallas, no, you don't even go to LA. You go from Dallas to Haneda. So it's an even longer distance. Like as far as the crow flies from Dallas Fort Worth to Haneda. Let's look at this really quick. That is a flight of 6,500 miles in first class. So you're on the plane even longer than you would be from LA, because the flight from LA to Tokyo is only 5.4 thousand miles. So it's a whole 1,000 miles shorter. And then you fly from Haneda to Beijing International Airport, and it still costs less than just flying to Tokyo.
Honestly, though, like zoom back out and show me the route. Let's see. And honestly, like what's crazy is I'm not paying like 30 grand to come flying in like a ballistic missile trajectory. Like I'm not doing it.
No, I'm not either. Dude, you're literally flying like an ICBM though, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, you really are.
Let's see, and from Dallas, dude, it's literally an ICBM trajectory, no joke.
They got that what do they call it, arc. They got that
They got
swoosh.
ballistic arc. Like it's man, that bombastic ballistic arc. Dude, honestly though, I would have to tell y'all the airplanes don't make any sense at all. Now, let's compare this. Let me compare this really quickly. Let's compare. Hold up, folks. Let me do this really quickly. Hold up, folks.
Can you get a flight to Pyongyang on Google Flights? I've never really checked that.
You know what? That's a good question. Let me go pull it up on my side screen here.
I want to get locked up, folks. I'm looking to get put in the slammer. Like, can they put me in the slammer over there in North Korea?
No. Hold up. This isn't
I want free housing.
real,
I want that,
right?
I want that stuff. Do they have it?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, let's see it.
I'm not sure if it's Pyongyang. It's Pyongyang, North Korea. So you apparently can fly all the way to Pyongyang, North Korea for about $1,600 from Birmingham, Alabama.
What? Who's the airline?
Oh,
Let's see,
it takes you to Genpo, and that's it. It doesn't take you all the way to Pyongyang.
Gempo.
Yeah, you know Genpo, right? Like that's where the Gemp suit. No, I'm just kidding. Well, wait a
minute. Go back to the airlines real quick. I'm trying to. I want to see exactly. Oh, this is Genpo right here.
This is
okay.
in Seoul.
Yeah, that's not even North Korea. But go back to that other one real quick to the flights. See what that second one says. Where does it take you?
It takes you to Tokyo.
I mean, like the second option down below.
Oh, sorry. Whoopsie daisy. Didn't know. Incheon.
Let's see. This only takes you to Incheon. Well, this isn't. Scroll back up and see what you put in. Like, what did you put into the top search bar?
I put in Pyongyang, North Korea.
Damn. Like, I don't even know how you get a flight on Air Koryo if you were trying to get in. Like, I'm not really sure how. I think you have to go to China first, and then you have to speak to a travel agent in China, and then they have access to the secret menu flights.
Yeah, although, Maddie, I will have to say that, honestly, in between which place is worse, flying into Pyongyang or Genpo, I'd say that, honestly, I'd have to go with Genpo. Something about that sounds kind of sus, honestly. Like, man, dude, you get out of that plane, and everyone, oddly enough, is wearing a lot of latex. You know, it's very questionable stuff around there, you know, a cultural thing, but not really a big fan of it. But anyways.
They'll do that to you for free in North Korea without even you asking.
Bro, I also heard that they give you the spa treatment. They called it the waterboard.
Man, I'll tell you what, you come out there with like a whole new look on life.
Bro, you really do. A whole new disposition. But let's see. What about the Delta flights? Where do they take you? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't want to just look at the Delta flights. I wanted to look at them all. So, what about this Delta flight here? This will take you from
Incheon.
Salt Lake to Incheon again. So, this one also goes to Incheon. So, yeah. Um, so yeah, you the closest you can get to Pyongyang is Seoul. So, just in case y'all are wondering. So, with that,
What about the what about punch in Moscow now and see if you can get a Moscow flight? Let's see. If you can't get the spa treatment in North Korea, you can always get the roughing up. Oh, we got flights. We got flights. Who's the first one here? Let's see. Qatar is flying in there. Yeah, it actually goes to the Moscow Pushkin Airport right there. So yeah, that's actually getting you in there. That's kind of surprising.
wow, you too can become a political prisoner of the Russian Federation for only $1,600 round trip. But since it is only a one-way trip, since we're not planning on coming back, let's do it one way. Oh, and only $900 to become a prisoner of the Russian government and to put into a labor camp. That's not too bad, honestly. That's kind of a value deal.
That is a value deal. I remember that WNBA basketball player went over there and got like locked up for a little bit or something over there, and because they went in with some contraband or something, or at least allegedly, and they got locked up. I remember they let them out. I recently heard that person speaking about it. And I was like, damn, like they really actually put them in like a real like Russian prison over there. It wasn't just like some light work or something like that. They actually put them in the prison. And that basketball player was talking about. I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. Also, the basketball player shocked me too. They have an oddly deep voice too. It was like, "Yeah, I was put in the prison." I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Wasn't expecting that." But damn, sounds like they were put through it over there in Moscow. I'm glad they got out of there.
Man, they don't play around in Russia. There's no such thing as a light work prison in Russia.
Yeah, I don't think it was light work. It was that was heavy work over there.
So where is a place? Let's see here. Let's think of a place.
Also, wait a minute. Everybody's saying the worst deal ever. It was the worst deal. I'm glad our American citizen is back because obviously we don't want any American citizens left in a hostile country. But we traded the WNBA player for the merchant,
of death.
The one who deals death. We said, let's give the one who deals out death. Let's hand him over. Here, you have him back. Like, here, have him. We'll take back that basketball player. I'm like, okay. I guess whatever.
A little bit questionable if you ask me, but luckily we got them back. It's good to know that we got an American citizen back. It's just that, was the trade really fair? And I think a lot of people could agree that it wasn't. But look at this. You can fly to Santiago in Chile, which is a pretty good ways away. That's a 14-hour flight, or a 12-hour flight, longer than it is from here to London, all the way down to pretty much about right here for $900 round trip. That's actually not too bad.
That's not bad at all, honestly. Not too bad.
But anyways, folks, we got to eventually stop comparing prices of flights. Although first-class flights outside of this country, hold up, I want to find this out. What does a first-class flight to Seattle cost? Because that's a pretty good distance away in the lower 48. Look at that.
That's economy.
Yeah, but that's still insanely cheap. Let's look at first class. Okay, that's getting on up there.
Yeah. That's a big price right there. If you want to go American, that's going to be 1,400 smagaroos right there. That's steep.
That is steep. That's steep. But, that's still not too bad, though, when you think about it, because it is round trip after all.
Not too bad. I wonder why it's so expensive to go there, because when I take flights to Salt Lake City, it's not anywhere near that expensive. It's barely half the price of that. Like, barely.
Yeah, look at that. What the hell's up with this?
And also, I use points because I don't like to pay for flights. I like to have them free.
What about Los Angeles? Oh, that's not too bad. Like, that's not that bad. It is a 7-hour flight, so, in first class for 7 hours, about $1,000. That's about over $120 an hour or so. That's a great deal, like that's not too bad. Oh man. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. It's time for us to move on, though. We have to move on. I'm going to be stuck on that all night long. But anyways, it is time for us to move on into the next question.
All right, and our next one here goes to Matthias, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Matthias, for that very
Hey!
generous support as well and helping to keep the channel running. They said back in the day, dads had 4 sons. Now a son has 4 dads. That's deep. The climate change is real. Oh
Oh,
my God, that's what
oh,
Matthias said. He said,
oh,
LSA.
oh my God. Oh my God. Matthias, the world. It's imploding. All the angry people. They're coming out in the chat already. Oh God. It's over. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I gotta tell you, inflation is tough these days. The economy is in tough shape. You know, we have a I think it's a Hispanic man who's in the government. He has 4 jobs. I mean, that's inflation right there. The economy's in rough shape, folks. But beyond that, I do have to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to tell you, Matthias, man, the world's different these days. You know, some people used to have a mama. Now people got baby mamas. Like, that's any different, huh? I mean, you know, it's like, isn't that like the baby's mama anyways, because every baby's got to have a mama? I mean, what the hell's going on around here, you know? That's kind of like customer service associate, or something like that. But anyways, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. Hopefully the chat doesn't descend into chaos in the meantime.
Also, by the way, I just really thought about that. Like, a son has 4 dads. Like, how's that work?
It's best not to implore. Like, it's best not to inquire, man. It's
You know,
best
about
not.
stepfathers. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's you know, that's generally what it means. You know, it's a rough one though. You know, it's a real rough situation. Many kids find them. Many such cases. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to George Lambert, who puts in a 20. Thank you very much, George, for that support as well. George said, Oblasts that are cultural Russian, they have not been well represented in the legislatures. Donetsk, Luhansk, Kharkiv, Odessa, Zaporizhia, Ryazan, Crimea, Armenia, and Nagorno-Karabakh over cultural issues.
I thank you for the support, but the thing is that with a democratic society, it doesn't really matter too much of your groups being underrepresented or their interests aren't being represented or not, because I don't really think the Russians be representing their interests too well either, to be entirely honest with you, because Russia's made up mostly of Russians, and it doesn't really seem the Russian government cares for their concerns much at all. So I generally have to say that's not the reason why Russia invaded. It was more so for strategic concerns, not really humanitarian concerns. So I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Raven Pata, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Raven, as well. They said, guys, you might have missed my comment. The full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia was not about keeping NATO at bay. It was all about neutralizing Ukrainians, stealing their identity, their culture, and their history, and comment. Honestly, you're right. The story about keeping NATO at bay was all propaganda that Russia came up with, at least in my opinion. So that way they could justify starting with Ukraine and invading there, and then retaking that first, and then moving on beyond that to reestablish the old Soviet bloc. That's always been my theory. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally have to disagree, actually. Generally, it's very rare, and the Russians kind of started that up really quick. It's not really a major cultural thing like it would be with the Nazi Germans and, you know, their issues that they had in World War II with groups like the Jews, where it was something that was deeply ingrained into their political ideology. The Russian Federation really didn't have that much of a major issue that they were spurning publicly to say the Ukrainians are the root of all evil. That started very recently leading up to this invasion. And so for that reason, I generally say that they weren't trying to do it to wipe out Ukraine or Ukrainian people. It was more so to try and stop the eventual expansion of NATO, because this war only started because Ukraine started the NATO ascension process, and then they started the war. And that was also similar for Georgia in 2008. So there's a clear precedent at this point that Russia starts wars with really any country that attempts to try and join NATO at some point, and in Russia's mind threatens their national security or sovereignty to some degree because of that. Although that doesn't make any sense because it's a defensive alliance, and it's not really like a preemptive attack would come their way. So the only reason that Russia would consider that to be a threat to them is because they eventually plan on going to war with NATO anyways in the future, and for that reason they don't want NATO to be in an advantageous position when they go to war with NATO. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you for the support, though, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cohen Teeter, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Cohen, as well. He said, say someone lives on the mid-eastern shore of the U.S., and if no nuke World War III breaks out, what are the chances of survival? And I don't mean to scare people, but I'm just curious on what it would look like for people like me close to the beaches.
I think you're asking about a nuclear war because a conventional war, chances of survival are incredibly high. Only at the worst, 10 to 14% of the population would be killed off in the worst kind of conventional war imaginable. But in a nuclear war, the chances of survival are 2 and 3 on the initial bombing. And then if you survive the bombing, you have a 1 in 2 chance of surviving the next 2 years. So generally doesn't really matter where you are, whether you're on the coasts or inside the country. You have a 2 and 3 chance of surviving the bombs falling, and then you have about a 1.5 chance of surviving the next 2 years. So I hope that does address your question incredibly well, at least the best I can. And a big thanks to you for support. I'd help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 support from Shannon Newman, who puts in that 10. And thank you very much, Shannon, as well. She said, misinformation and disinformation with propaganda is the way of the CCP and LSA. Now, I want to tell you something, Shannon. I just saw this on Twitter, and I do agree with you, by the way. The CCP loves information wars. They are pros at it. I got to actually applaud them because they're actually really good at it. They've also got a whole army of people behind it. But if you go check the Twitter, Enforcer, go check the Twitter and look at the replies tab. I want you to look at something. Because me personally, I don't care for Bukele, who's the leader of El Salvador. I think he's personally a dictator. That's what I think. But that's just my opinion. But go look at this chart that Bukele just commented on a moment ago. Speaking of people with misinformation and disinformation, go take a look at that, by the way. The most popular leader chart on our Twitter page.
Oh, yeah, I just saw it. Take a look.
Yeah, look at this. Bukele, who claims to be the world's coolest dictator. I think he said that at some point. I can't remember when. But he's number 91% approval rating, followed by Vladimir Putin at a 78% approval rating. Meanwhile, all the Democratic leaders are like way down the charts, like low, all the rest of them. But yet these dictators seem to have the highest approval rating ever. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Also, oddly enough, do you notice that the communist Chinese aren't even on here, like Xi Jinping or China at all?
I actually didn't notice that until you mentioned it. Yeah, China's totally missing.
Yeah, the world of statistics putting out a damn poll doesn't even include the communist Chinese. It's like, wouldn't you think that that'd be one of the most important countries to include here on this chart is the United States and the communist Chinese? And they didn't even include
And
them?
how the hell do you obviously you can't really poll people fairly in Russia because their elections are rigged. It's a well-known open secret. So how did we come to this data right here? It says according to Morning Council Political Intelligence, numbers are rounded. Somebody explained to me how they ran a legit poll in Russia because they can't even run elections fairly there. So how the hell do you get a poll number like that? And also Modi at 75%. I mean, come on. Come on.
Every hyper nationalist dictator in the world gets the highest approval ratings. Everyone else, they're fighting for scraps. Also, I got to give a huge shout out to the Netherlands Dick Schoof for getting 32%. Great on him for that. Love to hear the Dick's getting on up there. But beyond that, it does appear, look. Also, one thing that I find interesting. Here's something I find interesting. Macron, we're supposed to believe he only has an 18% approval rating. It's like, if I remember correctly, in the last election, he defeated Le Pen by a decent amount, well enough to be able to hold the presidency. So it's like, if only 18% of the country liked the guy, he wouldn't have even been able to be reelected recently.
Yeah, I think they might have rounded up. I think the numbers might have been like at 0%. Maybe they rounded up to 91% for Bukele, and maybe they rounded up to 78% from 0 for Putin. This seems like a bunch of bollocks. Like I'm just going to say it outright. It seems like bollocks. And also, I just really just nothing else to say about this. Also, it's like the U.S. president's obviously not the most popular guy in the world at this point. That's just by the numbers. But he's like in the middle of the chart, and the dictators at the top of the chart. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's also it's crazy looking at this man. Like, well, Ishiba is actually unpopular in Japan. That's actually known, but Erdogan only has a 33% approval rating. He's been winning elections recently in Turkey, which from what we understand are still being fairly run by pretty handy margins. Like, to be entirely honest with y'all, he's actually fairly popular in Turkey, like in an organic way. That's how he ended up becoming the president in the first place. He actually won by a handy margin in a landslide pretty much when he originally got elected. So it's like his approval rating is only 33%. Honestly, man, look at this. Like, any country that seems to be aligned with the West, like South Korea, like, oh, actually, every non-Western aligned country is at the top. And then every Western aligned country beyond that is farther down the list. Because look at this. None of these countries are non-Western except for the top three, technically.
Yeah, and it's happened to be countries which pride themselves on kind of, cracking down on your civil rights to a large degree.
Yeah, also, let's see. What did you reply to this? Um, Let's see. Oh yeah, but also, man, it's so stupid, folks. People are like sitting there. No, he's not a dictator. It's like, bro, he calls himself the coolest dictator on earth. It's like he even self-proclaimed himself a dictator, and then he sits there afterwards when he says, "No, I'm president for life," and everyone goes, "Damn, he's really a dictator." He's like, "Oh, come on, everyone's just coming out of the woodworks to attack me. Everyone likes to beat me down." It's like, bro, you called yourself a dictator for the longest time. Like,
His argument. His argument was on. Also, by the way, he went on like a Twitter rant about people attacking him over talking about becoming president for life. Essentially, basically, what they did is they removed the term limits in El Salvador, so now he can be reelected indefinitely, based on the way I understand it. Also, he calls himself philosopher king.
Oh
Totally not, narcissistic
oh,
at
he's
all.
a tech bro.
Yeah,
He's a
really,
tech bro.
honestly, that picture is cringe. But this guy right here has just removed term limits, and they've gotten it approved now. He can be president for life, which is literally, basically, almost the same thing that Vladimir Putin does. We don't call Russia a democracy just because he technically gets elected, and I personally don't call this guy right here a democratic leader either, just because he technically gets elected. I don't personally buy it.
Oh God, man, his profile picture here looks like a damn Nuremberg rally. Like right here, look at that. Like that's like almost identical. Like I'm not even.
Wait a minute, this is his profile picture, or
this is his banner right here, and this looks like I'm trying to find a picture of it at night because they used to call the Nuremberg rally field in Germany back in the Nazi times the Palace of Light because they set up spotlights all around it to beam into the sky when they were having a rally at night. And I'm trying to find a picture to line up to it because this picture was taken at night, and look at the beams, like the spotlights out there. Like this literally is set up. There he is up there. This is literally the Nuremberg field, like a cheap recreation of it.
Yeah, it's disgusting these days how, the dictators try to cover their tracks a little bit now. They're not as blatant with it as they used to be. They try to act like, oh, look, we have the appearance of democracy. Like in China, like they pretend like they legitimately elect the leader. Like it's obviously they don't. They don't do that in Russia either. And now you got El Salvador removing term limits and also having pictures like that, which obviously has a horrible look to it. It's just like, come on. We don't need to be friendly with people like this. Like as America, as a country, we need to distance ourselves from governments like this very strongly and not even associate with these type governments.
Let's see here. Trying to look at what he posts. Jeez, that salute was shitty. Damn. Like, he needs to learn how to do that. I'll probably be put to second
Wait a
shot.
Look, in the video that he put down there, when you scroll down, the first words that he said was, "The people call me a dictator." It's like, well, I mean, probably for decent reason.
What the hell is
probably. I mean, it's a fair opinion.
But
is he really like using his presidential speech to like ramble on about how the media and the tabloids are painting him in a bad light because they're calling him a dictator?
Bro, is he about to start selling an online course in a minute in this speech? Like he's going to start talking about how he rose up against it and you can too for only $20 a month?
He's going to start selling steaks in a minute.
Bro, he said, I don't care if they call me a dictator. It's like, bro, that's what Lukashenko and Putin say because they know they are one. And they're like, who gives a shit? I still put anyone down to the country who rises up against me. So who gives a... It's like Central America is known, either due to U.S. intervention or not, for forming dictatorships. It's a fairly common thing within this area. So it's like for him to sit there and go, I just happen to have a banner picture that looks like the damn Nuremberg rally, and I've called myself the coolest dictator, and I have this weird techno bro picture of myself and everything, and I'm always talking about how great I am, and how great everything is. I'm definitely not a dictator. Like it's like that seems like a tough sale. To be entirely honest with y'all. Because that picture doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in me that he isn't. Like, this is that kind of show of force thing that a dictatorship would do to instill fear in the public, to instill that kind of like an idea of conformity, and if you step out of line, there's going to be consequences. Like, this is the very same thing that Benito Mussolini or Hitler or Francisco Franco or any of those people did, or Stalin, or any other communist leader like Mao. This is all the stuff that they would do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. Also, I saw someone say, let's see, wasn't that place a crap hole before he came into power? Yes, but the thing is, though, is that installing a dictator isn't the way to fix problems. Like, America was a hellhole before, like, in its history, like Tammany Hall, all of the extreme corruption that existed in the government. We didn't sit there and say, let's just rip our government apart and install a dictator to run the country from now on. We just eventually fixed it through the democratic process. The answer is never to a situation, something's rife with crime. Let's just absolve everyone's rights and their democratic institutions and install a dictator to fix it. Because that's how you ensure that, yeah, the problems might be fixed on their surface level, but now you've opened up a whole new can of worms of other problems that you will never be able to fix because the guy in charge is the problem. That's sure as hell not what you want. But what else does... What does he even post? I'm like interested in what he even posts.
Careful scrolling through here. I don't know what this guy's posting. Like, be careful.
Yeah, let me take this off screen, actually. What the hell does he post? I'll bring it back if we have something interesting. What the hell? Like, these kind of posts are the ones that get me. We are birthing super intelligence. We're creating the mind of God, infinite, destined to solve every problem we've ever faced and usher in an age without death. And then he puts in a painting of the Tower of Babel. It's like, doesn't he know how that went? Like,
isn't that the thing that led to, like, destruction, basically, because of this?
Yeah, also, we are creating the mind of God. It's like, that's a little bit audacious, wouldn't you say? Like, that's...
Is he saying that he is endorsing that, or is he, like, trying to be the philosopher king, like he wants to pretend like he is?
Bro, he's the philosopher, bro, man. And also, putting in the Tower of Babel, of course, makes this a surefire answer that this is a great idea. It's not like the biblical story of the Tower of Babel ended in absolute disaster for everyone involved, right? That's not an issue at all. That is absolutely ridiculous. Like, the guy's a philosopher king. He doesn't even understand the imagery behind the painting he reposted in that it's the Tower of Babel.
Philosopher loser, man.
Yeah, like, also someone who has to say they're a philosopher king. Like, we're fairly good at analysis on this channel, but I'm never going to tell y'all that we're the analytic king. That's kind of up for y'all's own personal judgment if y'all even think that, if at all. And if you don't like us, that's up to you as well. Like, we're good at what we do, but we're not a king or the greatest at it. That's showing some underlying ego issues that are unsolved, and also some fragility in that concern. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to get on back to some more questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to Cameron, who puts in a 10. He said, "Hey there, and here's some coffee money to keep you going."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Cameron, in helping us to keep running with the coffee money. We have to have the coffee money because we have to keep this thing running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Christopher Napier, who puts in a 10. And he said, "First-time donor and hello from Space City, USA, Houston, Texas."
Hey, and a big hello to you out there in Space City in Houston, Texas. Really cool place. And Galveston, even better. But I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I got to say, a big hello to you. And a big thanks to you for supporting the channel for the first time ever. You're helping us to keep this thing running every day. I got to thank you for that incredibly. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Steve Pat, who puts in a 10. And Steve said, "Are we sure that Ukrainian drones are actually taking out valuable targets and not simply trying to reach Russia about its vehicle's extended warranty?"
Oh, that's a good question right there. I'll have to hold that joke for another conflict in another place of the world. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But I'd have to say, it sure as hell kind of looks like it, doesn't it? But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, really quickly, folks, I think some people may be missing the forest for the trees with what we were saying a second ago. I'll clarify. The Tower of Babel painting and also the incredibly audacious statement that he's saying. If that's supposed to be philosophy, that sure as hell isn't. Because saying that you're creating a mind like God, for one, is a little bit too self-aggrandizing. That's very ego-driven to the point that it's almost in spite of creation, which is something that you generally don't want to do. That's generally considered offensive to a lot of people. Second thing is that if he's a philosopher king, then he'd understand, whether you believe in Christianity or not, which isn't even the question involved here, that the Tower of Babel is a story of absolute failure and horrific suffering that followed. It was not at all a story of success. So including a painting of the Tower of Babel while you're talking about we're going to become better than God generally isn't really a good look. And also, if that's supposed to be irony or sarcasm and you're a philosopher king, you ought to generally understand that nobody can read into sarcasm in text form because there's no way to get that insinuation from it. So it would be best to explain that afterwards so that way people would know that you're being sarcastic with it. So, just wanted to clarify that to some people because I see some people trying to make it an issue of Christianity, don't even know how. It was more so a story from Christianity that was not even being understood by the original author as to what it was. So with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Mikey Mike, who puts in a 10. And Mikey said, I am curious as to whether a Russian economic collapse would correspond with a growing accumulation of veterans who survived the front, no matter the low percentage, and anyone track these vets.
We don't really track the vets, and we don't really know if they're going back into the working population or not. Usually wounded, if they're wounded enough, especially if they're bound to a wheelchair, there's not really a lot of jobs that they can do, especially if they're paralyzed to any extent. It can be incredibly difficult for them to have any job. So they may actually end up becoming an incredible drain, in a sense, on Russian resources back on the home front. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Unfortunately, nobody's really tracking them, though, to know. But just speaking for wounded in general, wounded as far as society is concerned in terms of resources do drain resources because they're really not able or capable of holding a job due to their injuries. Now, does that mean that they're a drain in the sense that it's a negative thing? No, but as far as the actual drain on society and further impending economic strife or trouble, they definitely could bring it about, especially in incredibly large numbers. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from Dupper Bob, and Dupper said, Slava Ukraine.
And Ram Slava. And a huge thanks to you for the support, Dupper Bob, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Croak Dream. And they said, okay, guys, how do you see World War III ending? And who wins? And how does the world look after? And also, I used to live in Huntsville. Oh, pretty cool. And it would explore abandoned buildings in Birmingham. That's you got some balls on you. And they said it's so funny to hear y'all talk about it. And honestly, seriously, like, you're really brave for doing that because you can actually get in some serious trouble doing that in downtown Birmingham, exploring abandoned buildings. So quite brave. But for my opinion on how World War III would end, it probably will end in a fiery hellstorm of nuclear weapons. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Because how is somebody going to lose World War III when we have nuclear weapons in our arsenal? I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen. So we hope it doesn't get to that point. Like, maybe someone will prevent it from happening. Like, for example, if Russia's the one to launch the nukes, maybe someone will prevent that from being launched. Maybe. But honestly, I don't see World War III ending very good. But Enforcer, what say you?
Nobody wins a third world war. If it goes all the way to its completion, it's a nuclear holocaust. That's what it turns into. So, as far as that goes, it wouldn't turn out well. If anything, the Third World War breaks out and enters a negotiated settlement within the first opening months. Because if it doesn't enter a negotiated settlement within the opening months, it is going to end in a nuclear holocaust. That's the only way that it could go. That's why no one's fought the Third World War yet, because no one wants to cross that path when they get there. But beyond that, I'd also have to say, you got some big cojones for traveling around into abandoned buildings in Birmingham. I mean, jeez. That's dangerous. Matthew is right. It's quite dangerous. So, Birmingham's a dangerous place. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running and sharing that with us. It's actually quite interesting. There are actually a lot of abandoned mines around Birmingham. Matthew, did you know that there's a lot of abandoned mines?
I kind of did.
Let me show you. Let me show you. I didn't. But here are some of them.
Oh, look.
That's pretty cool, actually.
That's pretty cool. You know, they got abandoned mines out in Salt Lake City, too.
Yeah, it's used to be like America was some kind of an industrial powerhouse, and then it all went away. Oh, it all went away. It's gone now. There's some guy in China, and his greatest predator, the industrial machine, is just sitting nearby waiting to take his life. Oh, there's no OSHA in China. Like there's no OSHA in China. And I tell you, back in the day when LiveLeak was a website, it was a horrendous site. It was filled with Chinese workplace accidents. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you, though, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Croak Dream. And thank you for making this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Siri, who puts in a 10. And Siri said, thanks for the work, Enforcer Bros. And I heard about how massive the 1815 volcanic eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia resulted in an 1816 year without summer in Europe. And also Gaza invasion is thumbs down. And XO from Oslo.
And I would have to say EXO to Oslo. And I also would say I'm not really a big fan of the whole Occupy the Gaza Strip thing. It doesn't really seem like a smart idea on really any level. But they're going to move forward with it, Mr. President. But beyond that, the Tambora explosion was pretty wild. Let me see here really quickly. Let me see. Let's see. Oh, hell, where is it? Oh, the year without a summer. Heavens be. Here it is. The year without a summer. Things got dark. Really dark.
Damn, they really did.
Yeah, it got dark. We got very cold, too. It actually started some famines around there. And you know what was crazy? This was right after the Battle of Waterloo, just the next year after. So the Napoleonic Wars ended, and then everyone got hit with a year without a summer. It pretty much was still, well, kind of like early spring or almost winter through most of that summer. The crops failed, famines were common, whole deal. Not the greatest. But still. You know, something that is crazy, though, is that the Dutch VOC wasn't around to see this explosion. Because this did happen in the Dutch East Indies, which was created largely by the Dutch VOC, but they literally went into insolvency in 1799 and weren't around to see the explosion. But pretty crazy stuff. I guess you could say that the climate changed. Oh, God. But beyond that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. It's an interesting topic of discussion. And also, you could see some people here who painted it who lived through during the time to show what it kind of looked like. And it looked like hell. It didn't look great at all.
It kind of looks bad.
Yeah, it looks desolate. But anyways, with that, I hope that addressed that well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rumble, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Rumble, as well, for that $10 support. They said, sub Enforcer Bros, and I'm new around here, but I enjoy what you guys do and the grind. And I'm sure it is. And my question is, what do you guys think the chances of World War III really are? And will it be more deadly than World War II?
If it goes into a nuclear war, it certainly will be deadlier than World War II. But that's only at that point. It wouldn't be deadlier than World War II unless if it turned nuclear. But as far as, let's see here, the chances of World War III, I would say nowadays it's 30% and rising rapidly. If things don't change, we are certainly going to be going to war. So that's what I have to say on that, at least at this extent, at this point. So I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to LJ Gitus, who puts in a 10. And they said, Enforcers, until you tried Crown Burger, you have not tried Utah's true burger joint. And while its owners are not from Utah originally, and you also need to go to Hill Air Force Base Museum.
Hill Air Force Base Museum?
That's in Ogden.
That's in Ogden. Ogden in Utah. What do they have out here? Is this a hardened shelter for aircraft? Or is this an ammunition shelter? I think this is an ammunition shelter because it doesn't have a taxiway in front of it. It's just a street. So, that's interesting. Oh, wow. They got them crammed in over here in these barracks. Damn. What else do they have around here, huh? Oh, you can see where the old railroad tracks used to run right here. You can actually see the ballast and everything. But they ripped them all up. Isn't that a shame? That's a real shame right there. And they would have connected to a spur over here. Well, anyways, let's see here. Let's go find that museum. Enough about that. Let's go find that museum. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, what do they have out here? Oh, A-10s. Oh, and a C-130. And an F-35. Oh, that's nice. And a lot of them. Damn. That's a lot of F-35s. Where in the world is this museum, though? Where is it? I'm looking around. I'm like, here we are. The Hill Aerospace Museum. And it snowed over. Oh, look, it's an F-89. They got Le Gopi. They've got Le P-51. They've got the Lancer with cover over the canopy. Huh? Interesting. They got a C-47, a C-50, CH-53, F-84 Thunderjet. I forgot what the hell that thing is. A B-26 Raider. Looks like a B-25 Mitchell back there, and a F-86. Wow, they got a P-40. Oh, they got an A-10. That's a crowd pleaser. The box. Oh, that's not a boxcar, actually. That's something else. A P-47. Honestly, a Canberra. A B-57A Canberra, too. That's pretty cool. They've got a Jenny. Everyone's got a Jenny, though. Like, literally every museum. Oh, they have a B-29 straight flush. Dude, that's Hot Dog Man's channel right there.
Oh, man, straight flush it down the drain.
Oh, man. Bro, they got a U-2? And an F-117. A real one, because they took off all the sensitive components.
That's pretty cool. They got a whole Bono in there.
Dang, dude, this place has got it going on. And they got an F-15. Damn. Wow, this is actually a really cool museum. They've actually got some unique stuff here. Oh, look. They've got one of the executive jets. One of the ones I would have never flown on. This is like the same model that Elvis had, I think. I hated those. Those things look ugly. But, oh, look. They got a KC-135. You can actually still see those around. An F-4 Phantom. With like a Coast Guard sort of a livery to it. But it's from the Air Force, so I think...
One planet you don't ever really see in these museums here. Everybody has always heard about the nuclear sniffers. Like, everybody knows about those. We just talked about it yesterday, the Constant Phoenix. But nobody's ever heard about the nuclear snappers. Have you heard about those?
No, I never have.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, the nuclear snappers were this group of really, really well-trained turtles that they would send out. And they would look for nukes.
Man, I think you're capping.
Yeah, I'm capping.
Bruh, blood be capping. Man.
That's that delirium-fueled rant right there. Honestly, I'll say this. The tacos did not hold me over worth the crap. I'm over here shivering and shaking from, like needing food really badly. So I know exactly where I'm going after the stream's over.
Bruh, blood's going to Taco Bell.
No, hell no, not going to Taco Bell. I'm going somewhere else, though. I'm not going to say.
Damn it. They got an F-22, man. They got an F-22.
Now, that's expensive for them to have one of those.
Man, that's pricey. We're going to have to go to this museum, you and me. Oh, look, they have a MiG-15. Best not to call it by its NATO designation, though. That might get us banned off of YouTube. But if y'all are interested, go pull it up. But let's see. Oh, they do have a boxcar. Wow, they got everything. I like that thing. That's really cool. But let's see. Ooh, an F-106, I think? Or an F-105. It's a Delta Dagger, though. I know that. They've got an F-16 from the Thunderbirds aerobatic team. This place has got it all. They've got the Flying Banana. This is actually nuts. They actually do have everything here. We've got to go to this museum, man. Honestly, man, this might be as good as the Smithsonian's museum at the Uvert Hazy Center out there in Virginia.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, man, look, they even got a bomb.
Nice.
Man, Bloody's starving. Like, I can hear it in the voice. He's nice. I'm like, bruh, he's dying. But anyways, we'll move on from this. But we will go to this museum when we get here in the future. But that's if we can make it there, because Matthew might die before then because he's starving to death, and we don't like to starve around here. I can promise y'all that. Honestly, man, the tacos held me over fine, but I could go with a little bit of extra food, add on those pounds. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here goes to George Lambert, and he puts in another $20 support. And thank you very much, George, for that support. Once again, you're helping to keep the channel running. He said that this was a prompt to Grok. Can you tell me about the way that the Ukrainian government did to the population of eastern Ukraine to have context for objective discussions? I support you guys a lot. I watch every night, but please take 15 minutes.
And I thank you so much for the support, George. But the thing is that the Ukrainians did nothing in Eastern Europe. I can promise you that. Well, in Eastern Ukraine, I can promise you that because there would have been accounts of the atrocities, and there were none. So that kind of defeats the argument, George. So I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Old Warrior. And Old Warrior says, thoughts on the arrest of a 22-year-old soldier for trying to sell M1A2 secrets to who he thought was a Russian. Now, honestly, I'm not really sure about that one. Like, obviously, I will say this, I always say this as a disclaimer. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty, so maybe he's innocent, maybe or maybe not. But the idea of a 22-year-old soldier trying to sell secrets to become a Russian citizen is crazy. And one disturbing trend is it seems to be that young service members are starting to develop this trend of wanting to breach their security agreements with the government, and it's happening more often than usual in the modern day for some reason. So I think the social media might be the most driving component to that. They're getting on social media, and of course they're young, so they're naturally hanging out on their phones 24/7, and they're getting dragged into this propaganda net, and then they end up doing something like that. So not good. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that generally, I'd have to say innocent until proven guilty, but if he's found guilty, put him in Leavenworth for a good 30 years as an example to everyone else. Also, I would have to say that that seems to be a reoccurring sort of a trend there, if that is the case, and if he is guilty. Although we're assuming he's innocent for now, he might be guilty. And if that is the case, it is quite concerning, and I think that harsher punishments must follow this to deter others from doing such a thing. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. I thank you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to LC39A, who just threw in a massive
Hey!
118 Canadian support. And thank you very
Damn!
much, good sir, for that massive support once again tonight. Literally 6 or 7 days in a row, I think, at this point. And LC39A said, if World War III breaks out, I'm going to Chad, flying first class, of course.
Hey! I gotta say, LC39A, Chad is not a bad idea. Really, anything that is not in North America, Europe, or Asia will survive a nuclear apocalypse, because everything that's going to get nuked is in the northern hemisphere. Anything that is continentally largely not in the northern hemisphere will be safe. So that's actually not a bad idea for surviving. And I'd have to say, flying first class, that'd probably be pretty pricey. I wonder. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a big thanks to you for the massive support once again tonight. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Pete, who puts in a 10. And Pete said, thanks for the scoop.
And you're welcome, Pete, for the scoop. We're not like the Chipotle CEO where you have to give him a little look, and a little nod to get a little extra. We have a little extra here all the time because we're a family business, like Jay Johnson or whatever the hell that name of the medical company is. But a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to VS, who puts in a 6. And they said, check out Bingham Canyon Mine in Utah. It's still active, the biggest open pit on Earth. And you can drive to the top and look down into it, and it's rather cool.
Bingham Canyon Mine. Here it is, folks. The Bingham Canyon Mine. You ever seen a giant mega dumper? Well, they are here at Bingham Mine. And let's see here. Ah, yes. The mine overlook. That's crazy, really.
Man, I'll tell you what, these dump trucks must be from Iraq, the way they bag that ass up, down.
God dang. But let's see. Man, it's really pretty up here, actually. Look at that. Like, that's behind the mine. And
it's beautiful like that everywhere out there in the mountains, too.
Oh, you lying. I can't believe you. But also, by the way, here's how big those dumpers look like, by the way, on the tiers that they have. To give you all a bit of context, let's see here. There are those tiers in their normal scale to give you a scale of how big this mine is. It's insane. Like, they literally moved a whole mountain to make this thing.
That is insane.
It's honestly kind of a little terrifying because, the wind vortices around these things can actually be so strong that if a helicopter flies by, it can actually suck it in.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like, there's another mine like this in Russia, and they actually have a special aerial restriction around it. I think they probably would around this one as well, because of the divot in the ground, it creates a really weird kind of a wind vortice, and it could get incredibly strong at some points. And when it's strong enough, if a helicopter is flying over it or around it, it can actually get sucked directly into it and pretty much dashed onto the rocks below. So pretty crazy stuff, honestly. And also you can see a little bit of water pooling there at the bottom. They usually have, yeah, you can actually see it, a system of pumps that drain the water out of the bottom of the pit and then drop it off somewhere else. But anyways, with that, thank you for the support and sharing that with us. It's actually pretty cool. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Clark Nethers, who puts in a 5. He said, "Hello, everyone, and I currently have a job income, so I'm giving what I can afford." And thank you, by the way, Clark. He said, "Take a question from the chat."
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the support, Clark. And great to hear that you have a job and you're a hardworking American once again. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat in your honor. And of course, the long live the Lee Spring Army. And what do we got, Matthew?
And we have a question from Mark McKernan, who said, "Is there really 300,000 Russian troops in Kaliningrad? And it seems they could have been used elsewhere than just sitting and smoking." Honestly, I think the number is like really way lower than that. I think it's more like 15 to 20K troops in Kaliningrad currently.
The last full report that I got, it said somewhere around 300 to 500,000, and I've been going off of that since then. So the number could have changed a lot, but the last official
300,000 in Kaliningrad?
It was somewhere in between 300 to 500,000 on the last official report, but that was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, the last I saw it was like 15 to 20 because I think Russia had moved some out to put them on the front lines in Ukraine, so I think they moved a few out.
I'll have to look and try and see if I can ever find a good official number on that at this point, but from the last report, and I always work off of the last thing that I officially heard before changing it, it was somewhere around 300 to 500,000. Whether that's the number now, that probably isn't the case, but I work off of information, even if it's old, until I get something that's concrete and brand new to be able to replace it with. So for now, that is the number that we would understand to be there, at least from the last report. So a big thanks to you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to George Tencher, who puts in a 5. He said, "I've stood all I can stands, and I can't stands no more."
Wow! But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, George Tensha. And I gotta thank you for doing a Popeye reference at the end of our show. I gotta be honest with you, Matthew. I think you hit me with a curse of starving because I wasn't hungry until you said, "I'm starving to death." And now I'm starving to death. And now I'm like, damn, I'm like, you spread it to me. You spread it to me. It's contagious. But anyways.
Well, let me tell you, here's the numbers. I had a pack of Little Bites, 180 calories. I had a breakfast muffin out of the freezer in the microwave, at 340 something calories. So you're already sitting like 500 or something like that for breakfast. Then the tacos was about 850. So I'm somewhere in the range of 1,400 at that point. Rough math, quick math, 1,400. Add in the snacks, maybe around 1,600 calories. I've not even hit 2,000 calories today. So that's why I'm currently at this point where I'm shaking and shivering. Basically, is because I haven't had the basic 2,000 calories that most people need to live. So honestly, like the food is good, but I got to like supplement it with something else because otherwise I'm just like all over the place.
Bruh, Blood's literally living on that French World War II Nazi ration diet calorie intake. Like today, it's like, damn, bro, that's actually pretty low. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. A big thanks to you once again for sharing that, Matthew. I thank you greatly for sharing that with us and supporting this channel and helping it to keep running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who are working behind the scenes every day, we wouldn't be able to starve to death. So with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, Miss Deesa said, "You need help in food management." Honestly, I really do. Now, one thing, if I was ever like one day, like financially really well off, the only thing that I would do that would be a rich person luxury would be have a private chef. That is the one thing that I would actually pay good money for. And also a good CPA, honestly. I'd pay good money for that. I'd pay good money for that, for definitely. It's tough finding one of those these days. But helping food management, I tell you what, I would love it. If I could have like a personal chef Danny B, I tell you what, I would be set. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to Naptosa, who puts in a 5. And he said, "Israeli leaders approve a full takeover of Gaza," from the New York Times.
And we did hear about that, and we did report on that tonight. So I thank you massively for the support. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Derek Pruce, who puts in a 5. He said, "What came of the leaked info? Russia thinking about going after Japan instead of Ukraine, and stay classy, enforcers."
That seems to be in some sort of misleading information or article, because nothing has ever been followed through on that. afterwards. So we think that may have just been the Russians running their mouth like they were saying they were going to retake Alaska. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, we're saying just get Danny B. I can't afford Danny B.
Damn.
I'm afraid I can't afford any chef, especially not Danny B. Because I think Danny B. he's going to charge up there because he knows what he's doing a lot. So I can't afford a Danny B. But if I could, I would definitely have a Danny B for sure. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to Vermilion, who puts in the 5. They said, with the Russian economy in free fall, how much more pressure can be put on Putin before he decides that the only real response is a nuclear response?
I would have to say, I would have to say, I think he can only take a little bit more, and these secondary sanctions might be it. So we'll have to start putting the pressure on him, and hopefully he'll stick. But a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, let's see, we're getting a food discussion here. Miss Disa said snack foods are good, but the prices are skyrocketing. Honestly, it's true. Like the little bites, like those ding me. Like I like them every time I eat them. Like I'm like, oh, these are like good and convenient, tasty, stuff like that. But every time I pick one up, I'm like, let's see, what's that, like $2 a pack or something like that? It's like there's only 5 that comes in a box and they're kind of like steep. I'm like, damn. I'm like, but it's so convenient though. Like I can't help it. Those are what I usually eat for breakfast. But anyways, the snack foods are getting out of control. But jumping into our next super chat, this one goes to Wolf, who puts in a 5. He said, as a resident of Salt Lake myself, when are you guys moving here again? Because I'm going to be listening for your voices when in public. Ha ha ha. LSA.
You better not. I'm just kidding, by the way. You can, because people have approached us here in Birmingham every once in a while. Actually, it's happening a lot everywhere, wherever I go, online or in person. And every once in a while, someone will be like, oh my God, are you the enforcer? And I'll be like, yes, I am. And then they'll be, oh my God. And I'll be like, no, wait, it's you. And they'll be like, it's you. Like, so it's fun, actually. I appreciate it. But we'll be moving out into Salt Lake City in mid-October, just about. So that's actually going to be a bit of a channel downtime as well, because we have to make it all the way out there to Salt Lake City, which will take many days, and then we'll have to move in and then get everything set up, which is a couple of more days. So it will be a little bit of time that we're off air as a result of that, like hardly making videos or streams for about a week or maybe a little bit longer. But we will be there sometime in mid-October. So right before Halloween, the spooky season. I guess that's the scariest thing for Halloween, is us showing up in your town. But anyways, a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Siri, who was in a 5. They said 99% of scientists agree that cigarettes cause cancer, and we believe them. Oh. Also, I can't repeat the other part, but thank you very much, Siri, for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. We also have a 5 from Hoodoo, Texas, who said Tex-Mex rocks, and it ain't Taco Bell, and not good to insult Texans about football or food, y'all.
Oh, come on, Hoodoo, Texas. They call themselves Tex-Mex fast food. I mean, is McDonald's a good burger? No, not in my opinion. But do they get the credit for hamburgers? Well, largely. But I still don't think they deserve the credit. The last time we went to McDonald's, someone undercooked the burger. How the hell do you do that? Like, they have a whole automated... I don't even know how. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support, Hoodoo, Texas, and helping this channel to keep running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Bobo Vasquez, who puts in a 5. He said, Enforcer Matt's my boy. LOL. Thank you. Because I did the RFK thing earlier. So I hope you enjoyed that, Bobo. And thank you very much for that support as well. We also have a 5 from two hot dog guys, 1 cup of snow. They said, can't go into details, but sitting here making parts for Blackhawks. Very nice.
Oh.
He said also, was wondering if you can show any videos of Blackhawks effing things up. LSA.
I wish we could, because there is a special type of Blackhawk. I think it's the MH60. Let me go check. Yeah, it is. It's the MH60 DAP. This is the Spec Ops, or the SOF Blackhawk. These things are cool. Very, very cool.
Ooh.
Look at it, spooky. They've got the refueling probe. Oh, spooky.
Isn't this the one that crashed at the compound when it went in on the raid?
No. Actually, they say that it was a Silent Hawk. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I know it's a special one. Like, but the catch is though, it apparently wasn't too special because it crashed and it had to get scuttled.
This is what they think it was. They've never been seen in picture photography ever. except for right there. But beyond that, it's apparently a Black Hawk that has been specially designed for deep infiltration operations. It's incredibly quiet compared to the normal Black Hawk, and it has no radar profile. But that's what they say. Nobody knows if it's real or not, and it might not be real, or it might be. You never know. But beyond that, I hope that does address that somewhat well. But they do say that this was the one that was used in the Osama bin Laden raid, technically, because it was a very specialized version. The MH-60s aren't really extremely specialized. It is a common Black Hawk by every measure. It's just that it has additional optics and sensors put on it. It also has the ability, I think one of these variants has the ability to carry some rocket pods, and it also has the refueling probe to extend its range. So it's really cool looking, but it's not anything that's like extremely super classified. Like maybe the most classified thing on it would be the optics sensors and systems, but that's about it. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can and share some interesting tidbits of info with all y'all. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. Two hot dogs, one cup of snow. Sadly, I wouldn't be able to find any videos because people in America who film stuff are very litigious about the videos that we show, so we can't really show them a lot without running Russian roulette with copyright strikes. So I do thank you vastly for the support, though, and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Did you know that Osama was actually a pretty prolific gamer? Did you know that? Like when they secured some of the hard drives, not flash drives, but hard drives from the compound, they found bootleg copies of popular video games on there that he was playing.
Yeah, actually, interesting enough, I think they also found My Little Pony in his computer's like files.
Yeah, they found a lot of stuff in there. Also, some illegal stuff they found in there too. That was, pretty bad. Like they can't be repeated.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty bad stuff. Honestly, not a good fellow to say the least.
And not a good fella. Anyone who's that old who's watching My Little Pony, I mean, what the hell's wrong with them? I'm just kidding, by the way. No judgment. But still, that guy had some very interesting stuff on his computer. Anyways, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next one goes to George Lambert once again, who puts in the 5. He said, "Please grok before tomorrow's stream. Can you tell me about the way Ukraine government did to the population of Eastern Ukraine to gain context?"
No. That's the third super chat that you've sent in about that. Nothing happened in Eastern Ukraine. Grok can say whatever the hell it wants, but generally knowing someone who's from Ukraine, who was from Eastern Ukraine, before the war even kicked off, I can tell you that nothing was happening there because he said nothing was happening there, and he spoke Russian, and he was a Ukrainian. So generally, I thank you for the support, but that is something that doesn't exist. Like, let me go ask Grok, which is run by a guy who publicly generally has something against Ukraine, who's Elon. Let me go ask that system what it thinks happened in Ukraine. I mean, it's not going to give a straightforward answer on that. It's going to give the answer it was told to give. I mean, like that wasn't the thing just going around chanting that it was Mecha Hitler like last week. Why would I ask it what it thinks about what happened in Eastern Ukraine? I mean, that thing's actually like off the rails. But that's like saying let's go ask China Commie-Bot what it thinks about Tiananmen Square. Like that's the same kind of a level. It's not going to give you an honest answer on that. It's made by the Communist Chinese. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LC39A once again. He throws in yet another massive support, by the way, and a huge shout out to you, good sir, for that 120 Canadian support. And he said, "I love and play the white and gold song during the day."
Hey, and I thank you so much for that. I love to know that you enjoy it. I actually wrote that song myself, the lyrics for it, and then I got AI to help me to compose it because I couldn't write sheet music. So I gave the AI loads and loads of instructions and went through 100 different variants to get it to the closest I could to what I was originally planning. And then we got it orchestrated. So I got to thank you massively for listening to it through the day because that's a huge honor. That's actually the only song that we've ever had orchestrated that was actually written and composed largely by either one of us at all. So a huge thanks to you for that. Thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $4 super chat from Jason Curling, and thank you, Jason, as well for that support. Also, big shout out to Bazath, who put in a 2, and Boba Vizquez, who put in a 1 as well. And we appreciate all three of you very much. We also have a 2 from LSA Sergeant Figman, who said, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
Hey, and hit the like button, folks. That is an order. We've gotten up to 4,000 likes tonight, which is one hell of an amount. And hopefully, we'll be able to get it higher. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one also goes to George Lambert. He puts in a 2. He said, I am former New Hampshire state rep and went to Azerbaijan.
And thank you for the support and sharing that with us. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the live chats. And we actually have a couple of minutes to be able to get more than 3. So Matthew, what do we got for the Morse code decoders of the night?
So tonight we've got Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Airbo Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, and Capio Teurix, who said, the Morse says, Russia is not going to be heading anywhere with the attempted peace. It's obvious. LOT.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message tonight. I gotta congratulate y'all greatly in the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps for getting that correct time and time again. Because nevertheless, how much ever y'all do, y'all are always getting it right and right again. And so a massive thanks to y'all so much once again for getting that Morse code message correct. It's incredible to know that y'all did. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the live chats. Also, by the way, folks, my stomach just growled, and so I was like, dang, I'm hungry. So we will be getting 7 live chat questions, and then we'll be rounding this thing out for the night. So we are on to the 7th to last question of the night.
All right, and that first question goes to Matthew Sheehan, who said, here's a question, at Enforcer Matt. From all of your knowledge and experience, could you place your bets on what you think will be the key pivotal event that will most significantly dictate the trajectory of the Ukraine war? In my personal opinion, I would say that it's tomorrow's deadline. That's going to be the biggest change, and it all hinges on whether the U.S. actually follows through with its threat or not. If they follow through and they actually put secondary sanctions on Russia to a very devastating degree, that will, in my opinion, change the course of the war, because it's going to cause Vladimir Putin to dig in deeper. It's going to cause him to basically give up on all of his stalling tactics, and all the bets are going to be off at that point. So the U.S. will be pretty much fully adversarial with Russia, and nothing is really going to be able to change that. But if we get a flake out tomorrow, which I'll be honest with you, I'm going to probably rip my hair out tomorrow if there's a flake out.
Me too.
Hopefully I don't rip my hair out. Hopefully I'd like to keep it. I like my hair, but I might end up ripping it out if they flake out tomorrow, because this is literally a make or break moment. We've backed ourselves into a corner in the United States by giving this ultimatum, and we've backed Putin in the corner as well. So if we just simply say tomorrow, okay, let the snake slither out of the trap, I'm going to be like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, at this point, I'm not going to have any hope in anything. Like, when it comes to, like, U.S. foreign policy, if they back out of that tomorrow, I'm going to say that how it is. I'm probably going to be probably ranting like a lunatic tomorrow. But that's my prediction. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to agree with that 100%, to the point I don't even have anything to add. That's actually what we both believe at this point. And if they back out, oh goodness, folks, don't show up for the stream tomorrow. It's going to be just us ranting about how weak that is, probably, if that happens. So hopefully it doesn't. But I feel like the critical crux of the situation is going to be tomorrow and how that goes. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the 6th to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Scott, who said, did you hear that Witkoff didn't even take his translator, allegedly, on his trip to Moscow?
I wouldn't be too shocking. Witkoff is not really the most masterful negotiator, or really anything for that matter, at least in my opinion. I think his track record's abysmal at this point. So, and it's always so funny, like it's, some people's track records are great and they get removed from the government really quick. And this guy's track record has been probably one of the worst, I'd say. And he's just still around. Like, there's no question if even he's going to stick around. It's something, like back in the day, people used to get removed from their position if they didn't seem competent in it. Nowadays, it really just seems more so that if you're loyal to whoever is the president with undying question, it doesn't even matter if you're competent or not anymore. You just stay in the position. Like, the whole Signal group chat leaks to the Atlantic back in the day. That happened twice in a row. And you would think that usually that would be such a major scandal that you would get removed from your position for that. Instead, no one got removed. No one even got punished. No one even got a slap on the wrist. Everything just kept rolling along. And it's like, that's just nuts. Like in this whole thing with going around and giving out these insane terms and being so uninformed that you listen to our adversaries on what they're saying. Like he went to Iran and Iran was like, you see, America is the enemy. And he went, they are? Like, it's like someone like that shouldn't be in that kind of a position. He doesn't even know enough about what's going on in the world to even formulate his own opinions or standpoints and go into it resolutely with that in mind. That he's not there to be swayed by their statements of their position. He's there to represent the American position. So with that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the night.
And this one goes to Elad, who said Russia is barely able to hold its own against Ukraine, yet Putin is trying to lure NATO into a fight, and what does he have up his sleeve?
Nuclear weapons. So I hope that does answer that well, and we are on to the last question of the night.
And this one goes to Brian Blairstown, who said, when Putin eventually passes on, and after at least 25 years of absolute power and control of Russia, who do you think will be able to take power, the military or the oligarchs?
I would say it's most likely going to be someone from inside of the military or inside of the government apparatus, because the oligarchs only exist by the benevolence of the government. The true power in Russia is held through the government, not the oligarchs. So I hope that does answer that question well, and we are on to the fourth to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Vollinger, who said, do you think sometime soon that Ukraine will do a major cross-border offensive, as we are now on the anniversary of the Kursk offensive?
I would say that I'm doubting it at this moment. I don't think that they have enough munitions to be able to support an offensive and then maintain their defensives elsewhere. So I think they're going to be mostly relegated to the offensive, the defensive through the remainder of this year. So I hope that does answer that somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Michael Ivory, who said, would we know when China is preparing to invade Taiwan? And if so, then could we do a blockade around Taiwan first before China?
Yes, we could. We would know because satellite photography would start to show significant military buildups inside of the Eastern Theater Command, and that would give us the clear indication that something is about to kick off as far as the war is concerned. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Theta, who said, if they take this deal thinking they win, and then Ukraine almost immediately becomes a NATO member, as it sounds set up to do, wouldn't that ultimately help out Ukraine?
Well, it's not set up to where Ukraine would immediately become a NATO member. It's just that, further NATO expansion, the lack of further NATO expansion isn't promised, meaning that eventually you might try and circle back, but that doesn't mean that they're immediately joining NATO, because the Russians would not accept that. That is something that they made incredibly clear they will not accept is a Ukrainian ascension to NATO. So, generally it wouldn't help them out because that wouldn't happen. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is like the last person that threw in the lunky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Daniel McMurray, who said, do you think it's crazy that we have bug-out bags ready for all this?
I wouldn't think it's crazy. It's always better to be prepared than not. But me, generally, if it happens, it happens, and I'll just have to figure it out from there. If I starve to death, I starve to death. If I get blown up in the first bombings, then that's what happens. It won't. I'm not really too concerned about it because at that point, it's at least in my opinion, it's over for me. I probably wouldn't be able to survive in a post nuclear world. But still, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. Do y'all know how many people were here tonight? Oh, it was a lot. 14.4 thousand people were here tonight. That is a large amount of people. And 140,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. We're entirely honored and appreciative to have had each and every single one of y'all here with us tonight, and we hope that y'all have enjoyed our stream. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. We had 483,000 subscribers over the midst of this stream tonight, and we'd love for y'all to join us and continue to grow the Lee Spring Army out to 500,000 strong. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again. And be sure to join us again tomorrow night as well at 10 p.m. Eastern for our next nightly war news stream. And also midday tomorrow as well for the short war video. If there is enough news to cover, it'll be the Enforcer's Day to cover it. And he will be seeing you on that short war video. But with that, folks, of course, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, get some rest, and good night.